Good evening. We're going to call this Commission Budget Workshop to order, April 11th, 2024 at 5:30. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor White.
Here?
Vice Mayor Grunder.
Here.
Commissioner Bloodsworth.
Here.
Commissioner Miller.
Here.
Commissioner Williams.
Here.
Commissioner Williams is going to offer the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Most gracious God, as we come now to discuss the budget, God, we just ask you to lead us and guide us, Lord. God, we just need wisdom, we need understanding, God, that we can do what's best for the city of High Springs, God. So thank you for that grace and that mercy. Thank you for this city. Thank you for the city leaders. Thank you for the first responders. Continue to look over them and protect them in hurt, harm, and danger. In your sweet holy name we pray. Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, our business item, budget update on capital spending, funding sources, and begin discussions on operating budgets.
And our new city manager. I am going to start with, Angela, can I give you these? The 2 pages. I didn't see it. Yes, it's the bridge version on the second page. The handouts will match the slides, for the capital slides. The second one I added is just a summary. It's a little less cumbersome for conversation. So we've had a lot of topics come up where we are using various funding sources, and I want to take a minute to really share with you what those capital spending sources are, how they're used, what the restrictions may or may not be, and what our fund balances are currently. So that might help you as we're making decisions. I know like the pumps are coming up tonight and you want to know what bucket to use, so hopefully this will be helpful for that. No, you're good. So the papers you have in front of you, the second page is really just a shorter version of the first page. So once we talk about what they're for, you can just look at the dollars. So we have various sources that we can use for our projects. One of the things that you're familiar with is the water wastewater impact fees. So when someone connects to our system, they have to pay a fee for future capacity in our system, the pipes, the plant, everything. So it's meant for water and wastewater infrastructure, so anything in the plants, the pipes, repairs, new additions, things like that. And currently, we have a balance of about $220,000 in the water impact fees and approximately $1.03 million in wastewater. We have already committed in the budget, you'll see on the bottom line, $960,000 towards the wastewater treatment plant from wastewater infrastructure, which to me is a good use of that funding. We're limited where we can use it. The second column is infrastructure. So that's the new half-cent sales tax that started last January that matches the wild spaces, public places. And it is limited, it's monitored by the county. We have to do quarterly reporting to the county and let them know what we're spending it on. They have a board that reviews it. They give feedback. If we've spent it on something we're not supposed to, it gets kicked back and we have to remedy that. So it's, the language in the ordinance is it's for roads, public facilities, and land for affordable housing. So it's a little bit of wiggle room there, but that's the spirit of it. So my recommendation would be, and of course it's your decision, but to use it for things like roads and maybe the pumps. We had budgeted to use it for the wastewater treatment plant, and I should have probably run over that first, but we don't need it for the wastewater treatment plant because we got additional funding from for grants after we did the budget last year. So the only thing that we're going to need to use at this point, barring any change orders, is the $960,000 from the impact fees. So all these other ones that we've committed money to, we can release that money and use it for other things. So the infrastructure surtax, like I said, started last year. We had about $500,000 by the year end. We should have about $625,000. So that has not been used at all. We haven't touched it yet. In the green column, ARPA funding, I know you're all familiar with that. We got that during COVID. And because of the way we got it, we can use it for really anything we need to use it for. We've tried to stay in the spirit of that, again, using it for infrastructure. The balance is about 1.36 million. We budgeted in the 24 current budget, we have 100,000 designated towards the fire budget and 1.26 million towards the wastewater treatment plant project. Again, we can release that 1.26 million because of the additional grant funding we got. And then finally, we have local option gas tax. So that's a tax put on gas purchased in the county, by the county. They process it, and they do revenue sharing with the cities within the county. We currently have about 400,000, and we're projected to have about 520,000 by the end of the year. And that includes any balance remaining from last year. I think we used the majority of it. And again, that's only for roads and transportation projects. You can't go outside of that. They're pretty specific on the uses on that, and you can do joint projects with the county, but it's not something that we can use for any other purpose. And we budgeted in our transportation fund to use 520,000 towards roads. So that there, I don't know, half a dozen or so roads projects in the 24 budget that use that. In addition to the roads project, there is a transfer to the general fund between 200,000 and 300,000 that is included in that amount too. So that's also a piece of it. So at the bottom, it's just kind of an update on where we are with the wastewater treatment plant and funding. So initially, we'd used a lot of the money up above. The project is about 11.8 million. We've received approval for 11.9 million in grants. And those are all done on a reimbursement basis. So we've started to receive some money because we've finally been in a position to reach out to get reimbursed. And we've just now put in recently one of the larger ones from the contractor. So we'll start to chip away at that money as we go too. So that kind of gives you a overall view of these different funding types. And I know I went through that really quickly. Do you have questions on those? Okay.
So just clarification-wise.
Yep.
The 1.26, that's going straight back to ARPA?
It will, yes. We'll do a budget amendment. That'll have to be approved by the commission. But from a functional perspective, that can go back. Now, we have had internal discussions about the fact that there are some sinkholes in the wetlands. I don't have any idea. I don't know anything else about it. I just know that there may be change orders for that. So I don't know if Thomas has any additional feedback or not, but that's something we'll have to look at to know if we do have to dip into any of this other money.
Okay. And the, I'm sorry, one more.
Go, no, go ahead.
The 100,000 to fire budget,
Yes,
that's going to be a recurring cost every year, I take it?
it's up to you.
Aren't we getting, I almost think we're getting into a little bit of a slippery slope if we're using ARPA money for
I
their
don't
budget.
disagree.
So, we didn't do that last year, right?
No, we did not.
I didn't think so.
No.
Okay, I really want to look at that. I'm concerned about that.
And we will.
Right away.
We can talk about the fire budget tonight. It's one of the things during
Yeah.
this hour, if we can get through it, and we can talk
Absolutely.
about that as well.
Yeah, I'm concerned about that. Because I don't want to jump into ARPA for recurring funds, and I didn't think we could anyway.
I agree.
Right.
Because of the way we got it, we can use it as a general fund source, which means you can use it in any fund that you want to. We got it as lost revenue.
Okay.
But again, we've tried to stay away from this. This was just the decision that was made for last year, or
Yeah,
the
I-
24 budget, so.
I kind of look at the ARPA as, once we start getting our feet back under us, and you guys tell me if y'all agree, it's more like almost like an emergency fund, or like we got to do it kind of right now, or like a one-time thing.
Yeah.
I really think we need to work on that 100,000. I don't like that for being a recurring thing coming out of ARPA.
Is there a sunset date by which we have to spend the ARPA funds?
December of 2026, I believe.
So we've got some time. Good, okay.
Can
Yeah.
somebody catch me up? I know it was, ARPA was what was it used for again? What was it designated to be
We
sent
should
to?
have,
Is there something on that?
Isn't
that I-
So
there an
when
ARPA?
we, I don't know that I included that in here, the packet, but
you did.
when it initially was issued, there were 4 different main categories that it could be used for, unless And you had to stay within those 4 categories. One was like health facilities and infrastructure, and I don't remember the other 2. Unless you receive the funding as lost revenue. And if you receive it as lost revenue, it can go in your general fund, and what's in the general fund can be spent on any of your other funds. The other funds can't spend on the general fund. That makes sense?
Gotcha.
So far, we've used it for premium pay for first responders and those who worked that came into the office. We used it for cardiac monitors for the fire department. We've used it for replacement rifles for the police department, body-worn cameras. So those are kind of the types of the one-time purchases, non-recurring, to Commissioner Grunder's point. And then we have another set of projects that are currently active, including we had some emergency generators for the lift stations, the elevator repair, the elevator refresh. It's really more than a repair. That was included in it. City Hall roof, fire department roof, matching funds for abatement. So we've actually done quite a few projects with the money so far, and we still have 1.36. We had 3.4, I think, 3.2 million to start with.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Can we go back to the wastewater treatment plant just for a second, please?
Absolutely, yes.
Grace made me these copies today when I was signing checks, and it says here on Midtower's invoice, we paid them about 20, just so you know. They've got itemized on their invoices to be paid by city wastewater impact fees, and they only do that because that's originally how it was budgeted?
That's correct.
Okay, so
That is correct.
none of that's
Right.
coming out of impact fees, it's all coming out of grant money.
Correct.
And to your point about, and they're invoicing the wastewater treatment plant and the infiltrated wetlands separately, which is good. I drove around there yesterday. It looks like they were painting. The new tank looks good, but the wetlands are completely overgrown. So it looks like they haven't done anything with the wetlands for quite some time. And I'm looking at their 100% complete, 100% complete. All we have left here is construction bidding, construction administration, resident observation, O&M manuals, and project management. So I'm not sure. I mean, obviously, there's no way they could have anticipated the sinkholes. Where does that fall in? How are we going to pay? Because they're not small.
Right.
Thomas could probably answer this better than anybody, but, I don't know if the engineer is considering perhaps a design modification to go away from the wetlands, to stay with Sprayfield. I don't know. Because I just haven't heard what we're going to be doing. It costs a lot of money to fill those sinkholes in.
Right, exactly. And just before that part of it, the money part of it, we would fall back on the same, we would just kind of revert back to the same funding sources as needed. So we would use impact fees, infrastructure first, to the extent we can, because ARPA doesn't have the restrictions those funds have. At least that would be my opinion. You guys get to decide how you want to spend it, what order you want to spend it in, but that would be my recommendation. But again, I have zero idea what the magnitude of those types of change orders would be.
Yeah, And if we used $960,000 of impact fees for the wastewater treatment plant project, we've only got $70,000 left in impact fees, so there's not much there. So we're basically going to drain that.
Right.
Okay.
Probably shift some of that 1.26.
Maybe, I don't know. I would be curious to know from the engineers what their plans are, from the construction folks, what they're planning on doing, and what the financial impact is of this current change order. 'Cause there's nothing to say that we may not have more as well. You can never anticipate that.
Yeah, I don't know of any construction projects that's ever gone without a change order.
Of course,
so.
of course. In terms of the ARPA money, Jeremy and I spoke a little bit ago about the lift stations that we spent $500,000 on, and we have $60,000 left out of that estimated budget. But from what Jeremy says, they were put in place to operate off natural gas, but we don't have natural gas in place yet.
That's my
So I think that's
understanding.
something we're going to need to discuss. Do we want to temporarily migrate to propane? Because hurricane season's coming, And it would be a bummer of a deal to have those those generators there and not have them be able to run.
Right. And that may be something Thomas
Yeah.
explained them to me, so I'm sure he
Okay.
could explain it better than I can. Do
Okay.
you want,
I recommend that that's not really a budget workshop as far
Okay.
as that's something we need to look at into the future, provide some solutions.
Okay.
I'd recommend that we stay with the budget
Big picture.
workshop is where
Okay.
it's going.
Now, I know you said from the infrastructure fund, you would recommend to pull from there for the pumps?
that would be my
Could we not use
recommendation.
any of the water that we're not, because it's going to zero, so will we not be able to use any of that to do the pumps?
So we're looking at the second column, infrastructure tax. The pumps are for the sewer system, the wastewater system. And I apologize, I'm used to wastewater, WW, so if you see that, that's sewer, that's wastewater.
Okay.
The water impact fees in the blue column can only be used for the water system, and the pumps are going to be for the sewer system. So we could use the infrastructure tax or any additional wastewater impact fees that we have left over. So we'll have, like the mayor said, about 70,000 left over. We could use that first, and we can use the infrastructure tax. That's 625,000 this year. We could use that. And I know they're confusing, so please feel free to ask all the questions you have, because
The
it's
colors
not-
are helpful.
Oh, good.
Seriously.
Oh, good, okay. I mean, the information I share is not that exciting, so I have to do what I can
very
to
important.
make it a little better.
Very important.
Usually people just glaze over. And again, this page is just to simplify. It takes out all the I should have flipped over to this one already, sorry. And just so you can see the numbers, if, you have any questions about where we need to go. And we're already working on the 25 budget, so I'm getting the templates out to everybody to start working on their 25, work on their projections for 24. So we plan to be in front of you in July. I think you guys have probably gotten those meeting invites, and have a well-vetted budget by that point. The city manager and I are already starting our meetings. We'll be meeting with the department heads over the next few weeks and really start working on that. So any direction, preferences, we've had, it depended on who the commission was, and, it changes constantly, about feelings about these kinds of funds and how to spend them. I know a couple of years ago when I first got here, there was a big push on roads. I don't know if that's still the push or if it's utilities or, so as you think about those, that will help us in development of the budget and what we want to bring forward. And we have a couple departments to look at. You had mentioned that you wanted to, Madam Mayor, you wanted to look at the clerk's budget and fire and public works. We have some preliminary numbers for water and sewer. They're very preliminary. They're, where we are in '24 so far, plus projections. And, of course, the city manager just got here this week. I've been back a few weeks, and I'm getting caught up too. So we really have a lot more work to do to really give you strong projections, but we want you to kind of know where we're headed and what kind of challenges we're going to have. The numbers aren't great in water and sewer, and we would prefer to come with solutions, which we don't have, and that is not our preferred way to do it. But we still want to make sure that you have some awareness of where we are so that we can start working to improve that position. So I'm going to start with the city clerk's budget. One of the concerns was with all the election hours and extra work, where we were in that budget. And as you can see, the top half of all these slides, as I show you the expenses, I'll start out with the personnel costs, those are your salaries and benefits, and then in the second half will be your operating costs. And these are just for daily operations. So when we get to sewer, water, they're not including the capital projects. They're two separate buckets. So personnel costs, we don't anticipate any variation. I mean, there might be a little bit here and there, but nothing significant. And the clerk has reduced her training and travel slightly to help compensate for some of the city election expense, which I've bolded halfway down the expense list. And we're anticipating almost double what was budgeted of the $6,000, but overall, it's only about a $3,000 difference, and finance and billing both, because we've had vacancies, have a little bit of extra funding there that can help easily cover that piece. Do you have any questions for the clerk on that?
That's
Does that
impressive.
help you?
Seriously, with all of the work you've had to do that you didn't anticipate, only having a $3,000 delta, that's amazing.
And there's only $533 of overtime.
That's incredible.
Sorry. My
Yeah.
Boston came out.
Wow.
So no, that one was the easy one. The next one is fire, and the fire budget, the revenues and expenses, you always start out with them equal. So the budget for fiscal year '24 was $2.5 million. You can see the actuals to date in the middle column. 860,000 of revenues have come in, and I'll have another slide for each of these categories so we can go through it in more detail. And about 1.1 million in expenses. The projection at the end, when I go through the expenses and revenues, I'll show you why they're a lower number than what the budget is. And also on the actuals, the actual numbers don't include the transfers from the general fund into the revenue or the ARPA into the revenue. When we do transfers like that, we do them at year end or as the funds are needed, so that if we don't have to transfer the whole amount. So here's our expenses, and I apologize, there's a lot of information on these slides, and I've tried to roll up some of the categories so you don't have quite so many lines to look at. On the salary side, the actuals to date are less than half of, we're right at mid-year, and they're less than half of what was budgeted, and the year-end projection is significantly lower than the salary. They've done a really good job at working on the schedules and overtime. Same with overtime, it's come in much better than we anticipated. We're at 71,000 now. I know the chief's been working to continue to modify that to decrease overtime, so we're looking at about a $35,000 decrease on the overtime from budget that was expected. So we're seeing savings in the personnel costs. And then additionally, just in general daily operations, I'm seeing way fewer purchases coming through for everything. So they're definitely doing a great job at controlling expenses. We have bunker gear budgeted, they're buying that, so they have that. And really the expenses have gone down on the vehicles, the Suburban's gone back. So for the rest of the year, we won't have that lease expense, so that saves us a little bit. And then, of course, going forward next year, we won't have it either. So returning the vehicles, as we're starting to do, is definitely starting to help. So on the operating costs, we're looking at approximately 35,000 less than budget for the operating costs, which is really, really good. We have put a lot more into the fire budget this year financially, revenues, deposits, than we had in the years past, and I'll talk about that next. But you can see that the projection right now is about 300,000 less than what was budgeted for expenses. So we're heading in the right direction. Oh,
Diane, with that being said, so are we not gonna need the 100,000 from ARPA?
well, I'm going to talk about that next.
Okay.
So it depends on which line you want to take it from. So the Alachua County agreement, I don't know really what the correct term is, but the mutual aid between the two counties, we bill each other for calls in each other's territories. And typically, we bill on a quarterly basis. The county has only sent us one bill so far this year, so that's what that 90,974 represents. So as soon as, or sends the call information, and then Kevin will bill them for it. But we don't have that information yet, so we've only done one quarter. The fire inspection fees are decreasing. The county's been doing some. There are some internal ones that are done by our staff, but several are being done by the county now, so that's a little bit lower. They don't charge us a fee for that. And then the fire assessment, which is collected with the property tax, actually has done better than expected. So we've collected $712,000. That includes what we just got yesterday or today for $30,000 more that we didn't know was coming. Because by now, most of the property tax revenue's already in, and we don't see much more. We got 181 between fire and general fund, so I was really happy to see that. And then the other revenues or funds going into fire to support the expenses were the transfer from the general fund, and the '24 budget was 1.2 million. And the last 2 years, it's been around 600,000. So obviously, significant difference. ARPA transfer for 100,000, to your point, it's a one-time kind of money. In this case, it's really shown as a repetitive, and we don't like to do that. The mutual aid reimbursement, that's from Fort Myers after Hurricane Ian. FEMA takes a long time to do their processing. And then we have some donations that have come in and that are falling under miscellaneous revenue, so that has been very helpful as well. So because the expenses are coming in lower, our total revenues we need to get are 2.2 million. So in this example, I've decreased the transfer from the general fund, and it increases it from 1.2 million to 932,000. And that makes it where we have just enough revenues to cover the expenses they match. We can certainly change that and release the ARPA money, instead use general fund money, and it's one, we can do whatever way you want to do it. And again, these are projections. This is barring any hurricanes coming or other major emergencies that we have to cover. We have a lot of staffing changes over time. One of the things that I have seen a lot in this budget, because we've had so many staff changes, we have a lot of PTO payouts that we didn't anticipate. We have vacancies, but the PTO payouts usually are more than that vacancy savings, and then new employees coming in. So on the salary side of it, there's been a lot of movement, but it hasn't been as detrimental as it could have been, just because we've been able to keep those vacancies and kind of help each other. So anyway, on the revenue side, again, we can modify which bucket it's used. I say bucket a lot, sorry, to balance out the needed revenues for the expenses. And again, water and sewer, these are very preliminary numbers, but they will give you the sense of where we are. Jeremy and I have a lot of conversations to have, and I have a lot of work to do. One of the biggest challenges is in the water and sewer fees. So our fee for service, if you have water service or sewer service, you have to pay for that, obviously. And that is where we're running way behind. So I know during last year's budget, we didn't bring rates forward in October. We brought them forward later in November. And then we really, to balance the budget that we have, we would have had to do a double-digit 16 to 20% increase. We did a CPI increase under 8%. So by losing that time and doing a lower increase, we're falling behind. And I know that was discussed. We talked about that, and it was like, let's do the CPI and see where we are. So this is where we are. The revenues are probably coming in, again, this is if everything stays consistent, about 400,000 less than budgeted. And I think we are not seeing a huge change because AMI is in place.
That was gonna be my
So we've gotten
question.
all new meters because we had a lot of dead meters. But billing did a really great job of doing estimated bills for people, so they weren't getting a zero bill, they were getting a bill. So instead of having to go from 0 on the meter to now you're paying your full thing, we only had a difference of half of that, and we're not seeing huge increases. Now, that may change over the summer. It's only been fully implemented for a short period of time. They started the project in November, so, maybe it just will take a little bit more time to see those impacts, but we haven't seen that. And, really, it's not an outside entity feeding us money. It's now that the customers are being billed for what they're being used fully. So That one is one we'll just keep a really close eye on and keep you posted.
Can I ask you a quick question with that,
Yes.
Diane? So with AMI, then, we don't really have a solid idea yet if we've decreased our non-revenue water at this point.
We don't know, but we do have really good information. So this has been pretty, I'm a nerd, so I think it's fun. So April looks, the billing manager looks at the usage on the new software we have from the AMI system for any abnormal usage. And it will provide a graph by day, how much is being used. And it's really easy to look at a piece of paper and see, wow, they all of a sudden got a leak because they used 2, and then all of a sudden they're using 20 consistently. So billing's able to communicate with the customer, say, hey, I think you have a leak. We also send the guys out to check on the meters, make sure there's not a leak on the back of the meter on the customer side or on our side. And it's been pretty helpful so far. So we'll be able to help more people with it as we get going and understand what we're working with as far as information. But it has been a lot of leaking toilets because people are like, I don't have any leaks, but there's constant use. And so I think it's going to be really helpful for the customers. And eventually, my understanding is we'll have a customer portal where they can look at that themselves. We're not there yet. But it definitely is providing good information, and that helps us help the customers figure out where, there may be issues. And then if there's a leak on our side, we see it too. So if we have a leak in our system that's not otherwise metered, we're able to send somebody out to look at it and resolve the issue. So that's helpful too. So that alone, I think, is going to really help with the lost water.
So is the project 100% done now?
Not
far as
100%. There's less than 200 meters that need to go in. The company that did the project for us, the contractor that put in the meters, they're done installing. We just have some left over that are unique for some reason or another. Some of them have remote disconnect capability, but when the meters came, there was a problem with that feature, so they're being fixed and then they'll be installed. So there's things like that, or if they have a larger size meter than your standard 3/4, 3/8, 5/8 meter, it just depends what their uniqueness is. But there's a handful, I say handful, between 100 and 200.
So I know you said we don't have much change, but is there a number of what change we do have?
There's not a significant enough change at this point.
No.
The hard part is because it goes in gradually, we'll compare now that we're just about to 100% or close to it, we can start looking at this month, last year and the year before, and see how much was used and compare it to what we have now and kind of get a feel for it. There's a lot of variables of people moving in and out and things like that, but we should be able to get better data now moving forward, that it should kind of be a steady state at this point. And obviously, we can bring that back to you as well. And these are the operating expenses on the water side. Again, the top half, the top portion is for personnel costs and the clock. At this point, there's no indication that there's going to be any huge variation in any of the personnel expenses for water. And one of the bigger expenses in both water and sewer are just the repairs. We have a significant debt service payment in both systems. In water, we have the AMI borrowing and well number 3 borrowing that we're paying back. And we also, that's at the bottom, and we also have a general fund transfer. So those are 2 significant items on top of a heavy operating area, maintenance area. And then the projection is pretty close to the budgeted expenses. There's nothing that's jumping out that's exceptionally off there. And then on the operating revenues on the sewer side, we're getting the same feedback. So sewer is billed based on water metering. We don't meter sewer, so it's based on how much water you use, up to 5,000 gallons. So as water goes, so does sewer with the billing. So we're falling behind on this one as well. Again, same thing, we'll monitor it and see how we do. This one is a little bit more significant on the revenue side. And on the expense side, we're a little bit over about 100,000, but again, it's the revenue shortfall that's really impacting us there. I know this has come up a couple times, but the grinder pumps are a huge expense in equipment and staff time. So that really probably needs to be a whole different discussion of its own on how we manage those expenses, because they are expensive. It's a heavy capital, heavy labor, and we currently don't charge customers independently for grinder pumps, but at the same time, the majority of our customers have grinder pumps. So, you know, it's one of those, we need to look at it in a few different ways and come back with some options. Both sewer and water, I really need to spend some time going through and making sure that everything's posted where it belongs. Anything that's a capital item is not in this part of the budget. Like I said, the capital funding and capital projects are separate from the operating. I know sometimes when you see it all together, it feels like we have a lot of money, because you'll go, look, we have a $7 million project. Well, if we don't spend it on the project, we don't get to spend it here. So it sometimes gives us a little bit of false hope. But trying to think if there was anything else that stuck out. Repair and maintenance in the system altogether, just maintaining the system has come in a lot higher. And again, there's a combination of a few different line items that probably could be on any of the three lines, but that definitely is impacting the budget pretty significantly in our labor time. And I think that was the last one. Yeah, that's the last one. I didn't get into the rest of Public Works with facilities. Those were just such smaller budgets. And at this point on the general fund side, you know, Jeremy asked me how that was looking, and I'm not seeing anything that's out there. There's nothing really significant at this point. Again, we're still in projection mode, so, you know, things can change. Again, it depends on the weather and, you know, how hurricane season is. I did have Grace pull up the Cox cable bills for the various times that they've cut through our lines. And so far, we've got all but, there's three events that still need to be billed for. And otherwise, we've received all the payments for everything. So we are getting reimbursed, but we continue to have breaks from Cox contractors on a very regular basis. So I don't know what the plan is, but again, poor Jeremy's only been here for 3.5 days, so no pressure. Does anyone have any questions on that section that we've gone over? And then next meeting, we'll do the same thing, except we'll just go into the what you consider more standard operating areas that are less capital heavy, and those will go pretty quickly, and we can talk about wild spaces and CRA, because those are unique too.
I have one question about fire, and I asked you about the funds today. Can we sell that boat?
Yes. It was paid for out of the fire fund, and there was a lot of talk about going to wild spaces that just never did. So
Okay.
any money that from that would come back into.
So it was not bought with restricted funds. We could
Right.
sell it. And, you know, Chief Vogel could probably tell us more, but my understanding is that we're not using it.
That's
And
my
it's
understanding.
as like new as it gets.
Yes, it is.
Okay. I don't even know how much I don't remember how much we paid for that.
We paid about $28,000 for the boat itself, and then we probably spent another $4,000 or $5,000 between marking it and coolers and equipment and life vests and blah, 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 blah.
It came up to about 40 grand or shy of that.
Okay. So obviously, we're not going to recover 40 grand if we sold it. However, if we could sell it, that would be revenue that could go back into the
Yes.
fire budget.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. That's the only question I had.
Do you have any idea where we're at? Is the solar farm on the tax roll this year? Are we getting that money at some point?
It should be, because it was on the tax roll January 1.
Okay.
And it should be in our November payments. And I will tell you, I spent like an hour yesterday, and I probably should have just called somebody, but I didn't because I'm stubborn, looking through the property appraiser's office, trying to find it on the tax rolls, and I was not successful. So I need to call them. I just can't find the property, you know, itself. So, I mean, I know where it is, but it doesn't, the address doesn't come up in the property appraisers database. So I need to just give them a call and find
And
out.
that's half
'cause,
a
yeah,
million sitting right there, right?
Potentially, yes, because I want to see the real number.
It's still zoned ag, though. They don't have to
Yeah,
change it.
and that I don't know.
They don't have to change
Yep.
zoning to plant their farm. So, ag, the rate is one of the lowest that we're gonna get,
Right,
so.
right.
Since it's now, I would consider it to be more an industrial use, but they didn't rezone it. But what kind of ability do we have to levy different kinds of taxes
Right.
instead of just ag?
Yeah, don't know. I'll find out, though.
Wasn't that our agreement, though, to get 500,000?
I don't know if that was our agreement. I think that
wasn't part of
Duke
that, so
will
I
do
don't
whatever they can to pay as little as possible.
Right. I thought the
Yeah.
agreement was they would pay 500,000 a year for 30 years.
I think that was the estimated potential revenue. But I don't know if that's actual. I don't know.
Do you have any?
Find
idea?
that
I
out.
don't know.
She's right.
That was just the potential.
Mhm.
There's only so much we could do with it due to the governor
Right, right.
with the property taxes.
Well, it's about 800 acres, so whatever 800 acres of ag land would go for. We should be able to look up the dairy taxes in previous years, perhaps, and see what they,
Oh,
although
that's
it was an
true.
operating business at that time, and maybe that's changed
Yeah.
things, I don't know.
Like I said, my trouble was getting that address, the published address for the solar farm
Gotcha.
to come up on the, it wasn't coming up on the property records. Again, it could be totally user error on my part.
Probably not. I think
Been
that's
a little
really great
busy.
that you're actually looking already.
Well, honestly, I will give Eric May full credit because in all the craziness, I'd forgotten all about it. And I mean, as we did the 25 budget, we would have figured, I would have remembered. But he's like, don't forget the solar farm. I was like, oh my God, I totally forgot, which made me very happy. So
Mm-hmm.
I give him credit for reminding me of that because my brain was a
Well, we got to
little
bring that millage rate
distracted.
down, so.
No pressure.
Yeah.
I remember one meeting before I became a commissioner. You all were going through different services that you offer and raising different prices, lowering them. Can we revisit that?
The fees, yes. And I don't know that the fees ever got codified.
No, they did not. We
Okay.
discussed
I
some
didn't-
of them
I
once.
didn't think they did. And
They did not.
that was another part of this year's budget. It was predicated on those rate increases and some fee increases, which weren't, in the big scheme of things, as significant. So yes, so hopefully I'll talk with Jeremy about that and see if we can make that part of the package, because I think that's important.
Okay. Any other questions? Anybody from the audience have any questions? Yes, sir.
My name's Rick Testa. I was with Dade County Fire Rescue for about 27 years. Fire, medic, all that kind of stuff. As a taxpayer, I'm here this evening just to make a couple comments, just as a taxpayer resident. For the last couple of years, I've been going over to the fire station because I'm a old retired fireman. And, we want to hang out with the guys and girls at the fire station. But I'm telling you, for the last couple of years, it's been hard for me to go over there because of sticker shock. So we got a bunch of new people here this evening, and I would recommend that on that particular item of the budget, the director just mentioned to you all, my goodness, for 2024, the costs are down on the fire department. And maybe I had something, little tiny something to do with that, because I've been going, what in the world are you people doing in that station over there? I don't want to upset the chief here. I actually haven't met the man yet myself, but the fireboat that you just brought up, Madam Mayor, okay, yes, it can be sold. There's a place right down the street that can put it on consignment. But you need to check out the TRT, the heavy equipment fire truck that was just purchased recently. That's a very expensive piece of equipment, and in my opinion, humble opinion, for one fire station with 12 employees and the territory that they have, it also could be sold for quite a bit of money to recover and put back into the station. There's also some type of an electronic system that's just been installed at the fire station. I don't remember what they called it. The fireman at the station explained it to me, went over the process. It's a big IT thing, so it was way over my head. It has to be maintained by the IT people. The budget, I understand, for the IT people in the city is pretty high right now. It's another system that could maybe be either disconnected or at least reviewed. But that's just 3 of the items that are exorbitantly expensive, and I think personally that they were completely unnecessary. And I'm a fireman. I mean, I love the people, what they do. It's a tough job. You know, some people prefer to be police officers, but why would anybody want to, you know, get shot at? I don't get that part.
Not very smart, sir.
Firemen are just cool. But thanks for listening, and I would recommend all of you to go over there. A-Shift, I don't know those people personally, but I have been accepted. They've invited me to come in. They've been very open, the people. I don't know their names, but they've taken me around, and they were concerned about the same things that I'm describing to you, so you might want to meet them, talk to some people. Thank you.
Before you go away, can I just ask you, for those of us non-fire people, TRT stands for
That's
what?
Technical rescue.
Technical?
Yeah, or heavy rescue.
Heavy
There's-
rescue?
Yep. The problem with that, Madam Mayor, and anything that the police or fire do, I mean, I'm all for it again, but there are budgets. And if you don't mind me just focusing on boys and their toys, I mean, girls have their toys, but boys and their toys, you get to be a fireman and you get to play with some of the coolest toys in the world. And it's hard once you become a chief or somebody that's purchasing to not go, gee, that would be fun. Let's get a helicopter. My department had 3 helicopters at $6 million apiece. It wasn't the helicopters that are expensive. It's the training every year for the people that fly them, the medics that have to be specially certified. I wasn't a flight medic. I had to go to school, and it would cost the taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars to let me fly around in a helicopter. Would I like to do it? Sure, that'd be fun. The same thing with this big heavy rescue truck that's over here right now. They plan to use it as a heavy rescue, TRT, technical rescue. That's extrication, getting people out of cars, big heavy tools that are on the truck, and it's a big heavy frame. It can carry all that stuff. But they're going to run rescue calls with it. It's a gigantic vehicle running around on 2-lane country roads. It'll tear the truck up, but the maintenance takes care of that. It's just an expense on the taxpayers.
Chief, do
Anything
you have
else?
anything to add to that, since you've been in the mix?
Uh-oh.
Sorry.
Fine, man, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine. Madam Mayor, Commission. So when I first got here, it was in the CAD system, which is the communication center. It was labeled as a heavy rescue. And when I got there, the members of the organization were very concerned, because when that thing gets toned out on a call as a heavy rescue, there are certain expectations. That there's 5 different disciplines. There's swift water rescue, there's high angle rescue, or low angle, which we do a lot of that around here because it's the sinkholes in Florida. The vehicle extrications, the trench collapse extrications, and building collapse. So that unit has all the equipment for it. It is set up to do that. We don't have the personnel for it. So one of the first things I did when I got there, I changed it in the CAD from a heavy rescue to a squad. So there's a significant difference. Squads are not going to be sent out on the freeway for very technical type extrications, things like that. So, and all that training, he's right, costs thousands and thousands of dollars to get those 5 disciplines. We've got 2 of the 16 members over there, well, 2 that are fully trained. So that was the concern of the officers, is like, I'm on this vehicle and I'm being sent to things I cannot handle. He is correct. It is a very big vehicle to run medical calls in.
You have one of those in Newberry?
No. We have a ladder truck, which is way more.
I remember your push-in ceremony for the ladder truck.
Yeah, ours, we have the ladder truck.
Okay.
Would you like to buy one?
Yeah, no, we're not selling our ladder truck. We love our ladder truck. You don't have to have the special training for the ladder truck. We carry a lot of the like equipment on it, like the vehicle extrication equipment, all that, but a lot of the engines do too. So, so yes, I do understand the citizens' concerns about seeing this big, beautiful thing that costs close to $1 million, and then the majority of what it does is run a bunch of EMS calls. So I can see the concern there.
So that's not the best and highest use. We overbought?
If you had the trained personnel, it'd be one thing, but we don't have the trained personnel, and with the members over there, the majority of them, Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, are not gonna go get all that training. You know, there's a handful that are interested in it. So, being on a heavy rescue is one of those glamorous things in the fire service. Everybody would love to be on the heavy rescue.
Okay.
So, yes, it is a big vehicle. It's a very big vehicle for what it's used for.
Okay. Thank you, Chief.
That,
I just want y'all to reflect for a moment and think really big picture, and I'm talking about traffic. You know, everything flows through this red light right here, and consider talking, you can't do it, but talk to the state and ask them if you can go from Cinnamon Hills, if they can put in a road over to 27 from 340. You know where I'm talking about. Right in front of Cinnamon Hills off 340, go over to 27. Think about the people that would go out that way or cross over there and stay away from the red light. And then if there's any way to get them from there over to 441. I don't know how that works. You know, there used to be eminent domain. They would condemn some properties and put in a 60-foot two-lane road or whatever. But we need relief off this red light. And a bypass is the only way to do that. Everybody out at the Springs on Sunday is wanting to go to maybe Winn-Dixie. We've done some good by putting in a Dollar General, whatever it is, over there in Southside Terrace. That helps a little bit. But they still got to get to the stop sign at 340 and 27. And I've counted 99 cars waiting there at the stop sign to be able to move. So we need to get some traffic off of 27 downtown, off the red light. And a bypass is one way to do that. Maybe even consider one from 441 over to 27 toward Newberry out in the country out there. I don't know. But it's just a thought. That's sitting there right now. But 2 weeks from now, somebody's going to sell 500 homes out there off that property across from Cinnamon Hills. That's agricultural now. So please, somebody look into talking to the state, putting in a bypass from Cinnamon Hills over to 27. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Gentlemen, you have any other questions? You've got 5 minutes.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
want to address a couple things about the fire budget. I'm going tomorrow. I haven't set a time yet, but me and Chief are going to sit down tomorrow and go over this transition plan. We have a new fire chief starting May 6th. Mr. Peters, I've talked to on the phone. Very excited about having him come on. And I think we're going to work on a transition plan tomorrow. My expectations for the new fire chief, one of the first things we're going to talk about is that boat. I'm not making any decisions on it without talking to a new fire chief, but he's going to have to come with a pretty strong justification for us to keep that boat, and I don't foresee us keeping that boat. I'm pretty confident telling you we're not going to keep that boat. To answer your question about the $100,000 in ARPA funds, no promises on it. I've only been here 4 days, but sitting with the finance director, looking at the good work that Chief here has done, I don't suspect that'll be an annual. Again, barring anything I find week number 2, might change that. But week number 1, the finance director's done a great job. And hats off to the chief on really getting these costs under control. You could see it. And the last thing, I will look into this heavy rescue truck. If the personnel's not going to get trained on it, it might be a big toy, but we have to evaluate how much of a hit we will take on it, and is it worth exploring? And I think that's something for the new chief to research and not make a knee-jerk reaction on it. It's not hurting anything way it's running right now. The chief has limited the type of calls that you get on it. Is that right, Chief?
yes, it'll run vehicle extrications. It will run EMS calls. It will run the technical rescue part of the high-angle rescue stuff. It does carry that kind of equipment, but you also have to have the personnel to be on it. The one thing that I didn't mention about having that second piece of equipment is the ISO rating. And the new chief is going to have to really sit down and see what impact it would have on the ISO rating, because right now the city is at an ISO 4, and you do not want to go below a 4. The goal would be to go to a 3. The city of Newberry is a 3, the county is a 3. That should be the goal of the new chief, is to come in. The ISO, to give you something on that, is the Insurance Service Office, and they rate fire departments, and the lower that number is, the bigger the break that the citizens get. Y'all probably have noticed that a new station in Alachua County went into play probably 3 years ago. I used to work there, and that was Station 25. That station was specifically put there because of Turkey Creek. The citizens of Turkey Creek had an ISO rating of a 9, because in order to get a 3, you have to be within 5 miles of a fire station. They had a great hydrant system. They just didn't have the fire station that close. So when I was over with the county, I was over ISO, and I was over the Fire Prevention Division. So we filtered an awful lot of calls to release letters to insurance agents on behalf of the citizens. And because I'm nosy, I asked questions, and it was saving citizens $1,200 a year from going from a 9 to a 3. So that is a significant savings. So when you look at things, you really want to make sure is, how is this going to impact the ISO rating? Because it's considered a utility vehicle for ISO purposes. It's just like in Newberry, we run our engine the majority of the time, and we don't even man that ladder truck. But having that ladder truck, we gain points, and it's all about a point system. So, but that would be for the new fire chief to figure out.
Thank you, Chief. Anything else? All right, gentlemen, we have 3 minutes till the meeting starts. I'll take a motion to adjourn unless there's any other comments.
So moved.
All right, we are adjourned. We'll be getting started in just a minute. We're waiting for the city manager to return. Evening, everyone. It's 6:34 on April 11th. I'm going to call this city commission meeting to order. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor White,
Here?
Vice Mayor Grunder,
Here?
Commissioner Bloodsworth,
Here.
Commissioner Miller,
Here.
Commissioner Williams.
Here.
All right. We'll have our invocation this evening by Josh Jimenez from Victory Springs Independent Baptist Church, and followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for tonight, and Lord, for another opportunity for our government officials to be able to come together and make some decisions. And Lord, I pray that you give them wisdom. The Bible says, if any man lack wisdom, let him ask of God, which giveth to all men liberally and upbraideth not. And so, Lord, I pray that you'd give them wisdom in the decisions that they make tonight. And Lord, I pray that you'd help them to lead and to guide our city as they so see that it should be done. Heavenly Father, Lord, I pray that you give them wisdom. Lord, we thank you for the sacrifice of your Son, having just come off of our Easter time. Lord, we thank you for that sacrifice you're willing to make for us, and that we can go to heaven through the sacrifice of your Son. I pray that you bless tonight. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Approval of the agenda for this evening.
I make a motion that we approve the agenda.
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded that we approve tonight's agenda. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The agenda is approved. Next, we'll have approval of the consent agenda.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion on the approval of the consent agenda for the minutes of March the 28th, 2024 Commissioner meeting, minutes of April the 2nd, 2024 Special Commission meeting.
Second.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, consent agenda is approved. We have no special presentations this evening, so we will go on to unfinished business. Item number 1, discuss, consider, and act on ordinance 2024-02, an ordinance of the City of High Springs, Florida, revising requirements of individuals operating golf carts on city streets within the City of High Springs, revising Section 74-6 of the City of High Springs Code of Ordinances by amending the definition of operator, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Commissioners, before you have ordinance number 2024-02, and it is presented to you on second reading by title only, and it has been read into the record. And should you wish to adopt it on second reading, the appropriate motion would be to adopt ordinance 2024-02 as read by title only.
Gentlemen, any questions?
No, ma'am.
I had one question, if I could, please. Are the operators of the golf carts with a learner's permit required to have a licensed driver with them?
I do not know the answer to that question. If a driver's license is required to operate, and if they are operating under a learner's permit, then presumably they would have to have someone with an operator's permit to drive with them, but I do not know the specific answer.
Okay, it's not really clear here, so I just think we might want to clarify that. Question I had.
This just tracks the language in statute.
Is that
We
right?
can come
Okay.
back and work with law enforcement to make sure that everyone's on the same page about what can be enforced under the statute.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the audience on this ordinance? Okay, gentlemen?
I make a motion, we adopt ordinance 2024-02 on its second reading.
Second.
All right, it has been properly moved and seconded that we approve ordinance 2024-02 on second reading. Angela, we need roll call on this?
Mayor Whites,
Yes?
Vice Mayor Grunder,
Yes.
Commissioner Bloodsworth,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Williams.
Yes.
All right. Item number 2. Discuss, consider, and act on ordinance 2024-03, an ordinance amending Chapter 10, alcoholic beverages of the High Springs Code of Ordinances, lifting restrictions on on-premise consumption of alcoholic beverages on Sundays for businesses deriving less than 51% of their revenue from the sale of food and non-alcoholic beverages. And Mr. Marshall, you had a request of the attorney.
Yes, Madam Mayor, Mr. Manager, the item you have before you is, as we can tell by the crowd in the room tonight, is a very controversial issue. If you'll indulge me for a second, not to make light of the issue, but for perspective and a moment of levity, it did cause me to recall a speech that was made on the floor of the Mississippi legislature in 1954 when they were talking about the question of prohibition of alcohol in the state of Mississippi. The legislator was a gentleman by the name of Noah Sweat, and his speech went like this. My friends, I had not intended to discuss this controversial subject at this particular time. However, I want you to know that I do not shun controversy. On the contrary, I will take a stand on any issue at any time, regardless of how fraught with controversy it may be. You've asked me how I feel about whiskey, and all right, here is how I feel about whiskey. If when you say whiskey, you mean the devil's brew, the poison scourge, the bloody monster that defiles innocence, dethrones reason, destroys the home, creates misery and poverty, yea, literally takes the bread from the mouths of little children, if you mean the evil drink that topples the Christian man and woman from the pinnacle of righteous, gracious living into the bottomless pit of degradation and despair and shame and helplessness and hopelessness, then certainly I am against it. But if when you say whiskey, you mean the oil of conversation, the philosophic wine, the ale that is consumed when good fellows get together, that puts a song in their hearts and laughter on their lips and the warm glow of contentment in their eyes, if you mean the Christmas cheer, the stimulating drink that puts the spring in an old gentleman's step on a frosty, crispy morning, if you mean the drink which enables a man to magnify his joy and his happiness and to forget, if only for a little while, life's tragedies and heartaches and sorrows, if you mean the drink, the sale of which pours into our treasuries unfold millions of dollars, which are used to provide tender care for our crippled little children, our blind, our deaf, our dumb, our pitiful, aged, and infirm, to build highways, hospitals, and schools, and I'm certainly for it. This is my stand, and I will not retreat from it. I will not compromise. I offer that as a matter of perspective. The 5 people sitting up here as commissioners who are your elected officials are faced with a challenging and complex and difficult decision tonight. And ultimately, it's my job, it's the city manager's job, it's the staff's job, and quite frankly, as citizens of the city, it's your job to help them make a decision on the issue that they're faced with tonight. And the best way to do that is to do it with a sense of decorum and civility. And so with that in mind, I just wanted to remind you of several things before the discussion on this particular issue commences. We'd ask first that you wait to be acknowledged by the chair or the mayor before speaking. For those that are seated, please remain seated until acknowledged by the chair. And if you're standing against the walls, just kind of stay back in the audience until you're acknowledged, and then move to the podium here to speak, and then return to the audience when your time is up. Be cognizant of the time limits that are afforded to you. Don't interrupt members of staff or individuals who have the floor by speaking over them, and please refrain from applause or from other disruptive behavior. On that subject, please don't disrupt the meeting. That would include speaking in significantly raised voices, as I said, clapping, shouting, booing, and other disorderly conduct. Please refrain from any kind of behavior that can be perceived as physically threatening. Please don't use profanities, insults, or other disparaging remarks. Please speak to the issue and not to specifically comment on the comments of others or direct your remarks to others, direct your remarks to the commission. Refrain from comments or references regarding race, gender, ethnicity, religion, or other sensitive issues. Refrain from creating, provoking, or participating in any kind of disturbance involving unwelcome physical conduct. Please silence your cell phones and endeavor to cite only the truth and not knowingly misrepresent, mischaracterize, or misquote information received from others. And again, keep in mind that everyone's objective here tonight is to help these 5 individuals have the information necessary and the perspective necessary to be able to make an informed decision on the subject before them tonight. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. I appreciate that. Gentlemen, any comments, any questions, any input?
What is our objective here on this right now today? Are we going to do a vote to go with the new ordinance, or are we going to discuss it further from this point? What is our objective here right now?
We can discuss any manner of things that you want to do. We can approve what's before us with the verbiage that's here. We can propose modifications to the verbiage that's here. We can deny the verbiage that's here and keep things as is. There's any number of different things that we could do, and that's up to us to consider how we want to go forward. Any input? Not yet. Not yet.
Madam Mayor, I just wanted to offer that should the commission decline to act at all, then that would be an endorsement of the status quo.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Mr. Martin, should we have our discussion first, or should we open up to the floor and then we can have response after that?
The commission can do it either way and be in compliance with state
Okay.
statute. So.
Well, since we've got a lot of quiet folks up here right now, maybe we should open it up to the floor for public comment. And if when you come up to the podium, if you could please give your name. We don't need an address, just your name, and share your thoughts with us, please. Any comments from the audience? Yes, sir. Yeah, please come. Thank you, sir.
My name is David Fyack. In considering this ordinance, I would ask, have any of you ever been raised in a home of an alcoholic? Because I have, okay? At 11 years old, my mother married one. And the abuse that took place in that home because of it was tragic. Many times we had to call the police in to protect us. My stepfather, my mother married him because we were very poor, and she married him for financial security. But that was a two-edged sword. She got some financial security from the money that he didn't drink away. The bad part was that when he did drink, which was often, he got abusive. He beat my mother, he beat me, he beat my younger brothers. And at 11 years old, there was fear in our house every day because we didn't know if he was going to be drunk when he came home and start taking out his anger on us. I had to defend my mother and my younger brothers until I left to join the military. At 13 years of age, I was to the point where I could actually defend myself and my mother and brothers. I could do that while I was there. But while I went to school, or if I went to my work site, I wasn't there, and that's when he'd take out his revenge on them. It was a very frightening place to live. And at the age of 16, I was working at a garage, and I came home one evening, 10 o'clock at night, and trying to just to help him out. I told him, I said, if you'll leave the car home tomorrow, I will go ahead and put new shocks on it for you. I hadn't realized that he'd been drinking already. He'd already been to the bar and came home. And he immediately began to verbally assault me. So I backed up. I said, okay, forget it. I don't want to do it. Well, then he went into a physical assault. That physical assault was not good for him, because at 16 years old, I was a football player, a weightlifter, and I took care of myself and I took care of my family. The bad part about that is, that night, I almost killed him because I got him in a chokehold. Is that my time up? Okay.
Please go ahead. Please finish.
I put him in a chokehold, and I was about to end the terror in our house. And had it not been for my younger brother coming in and stopping me, he would be dead, and I would probably be in prison. There is no good thing, as far as I'm concerned, about drinking. We have a law right now that can help protect, even if it's just for one day on a Sunday, to protect the families that live in abuse through alcoholism. That's what's before you this evening. That's just my story. And if you want to check the records, you can check with the Michigan State Police. They have all the records on all that I'm telling you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am, please.
Hi, my name is Robin Todd. I'm a member of the Victory Springs Independent Baptist Church. Every month, we give out hundreds and hundreds of tracts for people to come to High Springs and visit our church. We tell them what a great place it is to come, bring your family. There are restaurants here, there are things to do, there's springs. I mean, every month, that's our goal, is to bring people in to meet Jesus Christ and to come be part of a church and a growing community. We do that all the time because we're called to do that. We're called to spread the gospel. Your sign up there says, enjoy our good nature. Well, I want our good nature to be because of all those things and not because people are sitting at a bar drinking. I don't think this is a good thing to extend the days of alcohol. I just don't think it's a good thing. I want High Springs to be the place that people and families want to come to church, want to shop, want to do things that are productive for families and grow families and retired people and individuals. I am really against this, and I hope you consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Commissioners, and Mayor Weiss, thank you for allowing us to come and just voice our opinion. Last time we had the meeting, we had a lot of folks here. We just found out yesterday that this was coming up, and a lot of our folks couldn't be here tonight. But as pastor of Victory Springs Independent Baptist Church, my name is Patrick Jimenez. There's a lot of folks that we do represent that could not be here tonight. But with that said, last time in the meeting, there was a lot of things that were brought up. For instance, there were some things brought up about separation of church and state, that, you know, the people who are against it, or it's because of a Bible or because of those kind of beliefs and so forth. And then the pro was always the money that could be gained by it. And so I did a little research, and I wanted to bring it up for you. This is not a biased research. You can find it online by the National Alcoholic Beverage and Control Association. And I just want to give you something that they said here. They started off specifically looking at the blue law. and whether it actually helps a community or endangers a community. That was the whole purpose of this article put out by them and the research, the years of research that they did. They started off by saying this: the United States Supreme Court has ruled in multiple cases that laws restricting activities on Sundays are not automatically unconstitutional, even if they rise from religious underpinnings. They quote a case, the McGowan versus Maryland, 1961, where the Supreme Court upheld the restriction of sales on Sundays. And here's what they said. The Supreme Court stated that the purpose behind the law that they upheld was the health, safety, recreation, and general well-being of all people, regardless of religious affiliation. So the Supreme Court supported it and said just because somebody has an opinion that may stem from a religious thing, it comes down to what's it going to do to our community. So they came up with in 2010, they commissioned a task force called the Community Preventative Services Task Force, and it published its recommendation of whether the blue law should stay in place in communities or be retracted. And their final recommendation was to keep it in place. Now, this is an independent, non-paid task force. And that was their recommendation. And here's how they came to that. They specifically looked at several areas. One of them was the impact on alcohol-related crime and health issues, and also revenue. And so here's what they found out. They said when they looked at communities that took away the blue law, studies showed a correlation between, and I'm quoting right now, limiting days when alcohol is sold and a decrease in alcohol-related crimes. They said that is proven. You keep a blue law in place, it is going to reduce alcohol-related crimes. They go on to say that their statistics showed a noteworthy change in the number of police activity with intoxicated persons. And then they go on to say on Sundays, alcohol-related crashes rose 29%, and crash fatalities 42%. Department of Health stated that violent crimes increased 5% when there is a 20% increase on any given day in alcohol sales. I don't have time to finish. My time's up. I wish I could read you the rest of it. But simply put, their conclusion as far as finances, they said, can I have just another
Please, sir, please.
30 seconds? Is that
Yes,
okay?
sir.
I don't
Yes,
want
sir.
I don't want to presume anything. But here's what they stated as far as the revenue, because that always seems to be the reason. We get more money. Is there more revenue? And what they found was when the communities that took away the blue law, they found that the revenue did increase on Sundays by 3.5% of their overall sales, but they found that in the long run, Saturday evenings actually decreased by 7%. Therefore, the long-term goal was they actually lost money. So the revenue part, and this is so their conclusion was simply this. They decided, no, a community that keeps a blue law in place, as far as the Supreme Court goes, when you look at it, it does keep your citizens safer. General welfare. And so that's what we're coming at. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Courtney. I actually, what I want to say is that I understand the stigmatism that really it's only one establishment that we're talking about at this point. Because I believe the other place is allowed to be open, maybe because they're outside of city limits. Not really sure, but I understand the stigmatism that they're facing right now. 10 to 20 years ago, we probably wouldn't be talking about this. The brewery has been around now for a few years now. They've been pretty well established. For those of you that don't know, it's a family-run business, supports families. Monday nights, they have movie nights now. A couple nights a week, I think 2 nights a month, it's a kids' film on Monday nights. You can see the kids running around in the field. So I don't think that this is the same type. These type of places have been popping up for about 10 years now. There's been another one that's opened up in Alachua since then, which I went to 2 weeks ago probably. I'm not a big drinker, okay, but I do go out sometimes to these places, and it was mostly families over there. So I think it's important to look at today, not 10 to 20 years ago, and understand that this is local High Springs residents that are here to support the community. I believe Black Friday last year, they had all the local businesses there. So people, if they wanted to shop for Black Friday, they could do it with a local business rather than going to the national brands. So I really think that they are community-driven. They help support the community, and I think it's time we support them and understand that they're not the same as some of these places that were 10 to 20 years ago. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Gene White. I grew up here. I went to school here. I have family that lives here. I attend Victory Springs Independent Baptist Church here. Love this town. Been around here forever. I live 10 minutes up the road in Fort White, you know. High Springs really should want to be different than the rest of Alachua County. I mean, you go to Gainesville, it's liberal. It's disgusting there, you know. Go downtown, see how the alcohol is there. Tell me how you like it. And High Springs used to be a small conservative town with family values. Nothing about lifting alcohol restrictions is going to help a family atmosphere. There's just no way. You know, I have plenty of friends in law enforcement, one that I counsel pretty regularly. And ask any law enforcement officer, they're not going to tell you that lifting restrictions makes anything better for anybody. It just makes it more difficult. The only thing, you know, we're not here saying the High Springs Brewery, they're terrible people. Nobody's saying that. But if you opened a business here, you knew the laws when you opened it. Don't try to change them to benefit you. The only thing that alcohol has ever benefited was people who sell it at their business. They make a little more money. And last thing I'm going to say, because I got to get out of here, as someone who's self-employed, I don't drop my standards to make a few extra bucks. I don't think High Springs should either. I think they should be different. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
My name is Joshua Menez. I was here last year for the meeting that we had on the same subject, and I don't want to review everything I talked about last year, but I will remind the commissioners of the statistics that are put out. I encourage you, I'm sure you've done a lot of research already since this has been brought up on the National Institute for Health Research, and the CDC puts out a lot of statistics about 18.5% of emergency room visits due to alcohol. Some of the stuff we covered last year, just this is government agencies putting this out, not even necessarily Christian or religious people. What I do want to mention, though, today is something I heard last year that was mentioned, is that it helps families. It's a lot of family environment, and I'm not saying that because of the gentleman who just said that. I'm saying that because these are some things that I reviewed from last year's meeting. And as far as a family environment, even the CDC says that children of parents who drink alcohol, use and abuse alcohol, are 4 times more likely to become alcoholics themselves. So if you look at this, if we change this law, what are happening to the children who are attending these places that are selling alcohol? Well, they're 4 times more likely. The next generation that go there, 4 times more likely to grow up to be alcoholics themselves. The type of alcoholics that come from homes that the other gentleman that was up here at the beginning talked about, some things that happen in alcoholic homes. As far as the economy, that's something that was talked about last year a lot, how it'll help High Springs economy. The CDC recently did some research. They're still publishing their findings at the end of last year, beginning of this year. But in 2010, that's the last time they did a ton of major research. 2010, they said it cost alcohol, directly negative impacted the economy of Florida, not the United States, but Florida, $15 billion a year. If you were to divide that in months, that's about $1.3 billion per month. And if you were to go and do a whole lot of other research, that's about $1.8 million per hour that it costs Florida due to alcohol. And if you were to go and you were to divide that number by the 411 municipalities in Florida, that means it cost High Springs over $4,000 an hour just due to alcohol negatively impacting the economy. So if we were to look at this blue law, let's just pretend for a second it's only 5 a.m. to 1 p.m. we're talking about that restricts the sales. Then we're actually saving High Springs over $30,000 every single week. So if we want to talk about the economy, well, if we vote yes to remove the blue law, then we're saying we're okay with a cost every single Sunday of over $30,000. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of cost. If we talked about the rest of the nation keeping a law like this blue law, we're looking at this, the saving of over 500 lives. Literally, we remove the law. Because of this, over 500 people are going to die every year across America due to the removal of blue laws across the nation. I want to give you one last thing, and I know my time's going to be up. This is a study done. I have a copy. If I could give you each one, I'd love to. Done by a doctor over in Jacksonville on the study of alcohol, the CDC findings. And I'll go ahead and let you have that. I'll give that to you some other time, all right?
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Cami Jimenez. Thank you for letting me speak. As a mother and a grandmother and as a pastor's wife, I'm asking you to please not remove this or please not change things as they are. I counsel women that deal with an alcoholic husband, and you may be thinking it's just one day, but one day for them of possible potential peace is just priceless. So my wish and my desire is that you would not change things. Also, when we came last year, after everything was done, we put on Facebook, we're so excited about our city. We're keeping the blue law in place. And I wish I could bring up all the responses from my friends and my family that don't live here. And they would say things like, wow, you live in a community that still has family values like that? We didn't know there are places still like that. And so many people said, okay, wait, where is this? Because I might want to move there. And just to raise your children in a place that has values like that, just the response that I received was amazing. So just think about the future impacts on our children.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
My name is Stephen Williams. I was an engineer for 30 years, and I appreciate the statistics they brought with them, but I just think you just have to cut to the chase. If you got a person who's going to drink and not eat, they're going to get impaired much quicker. If they're going to drink and not eat, it says here alcoholic beverages, but less than 51% of the revenue from the sale of food. So I would just think it'd be a major mistake. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Yes? I'll get you next.
My name's Jana Evans. I wanted to bring up that this ordinance has been in place, I don't know how many years, but just 2 years ago, it was brought up for review. The community came out and resoundingly said, no, they did not want this ordinance changed. It was, so being that it's just 2 years ago, it's kind of early, I think, to come back and look at it again, because I'm reminded of what happened with the mural project we had going on, where people would come and be on our agenda, and people would come and be in the audience thinking that they were going to be discussing that, and it would be tabled. And then it would come up again, maybe the next meeting, and it would kind of be pushed around, and people were starting to get frustrated, and they were saying, well, what's the point in us coming, and how do we come and speak our mind to that? And the reason why I bring this up is because I am worried that we're continuing to do this now with another project by it just being gone over just the 2 years ago, and we're bringing it back up again. Are we putting ourselves in the situation where we're looking for a new city manager? Are we looking for new commissioners? Are we looking for these different things when hoping to get something changed when the city folks have come forward and said this is the way that they want it to stay? So when we look at any kind of changes in our ordinances, anything like that, I think that we really need to consider how it's going to look for our public, because we have felt, speaking for myself and the 1,000 people who voted for me in 2020, we have felt as though our voices are not considered. What we have to say has been disregarded, has been ignored, and we've had a tremendous changeover in leadership here. And I think it's going to be an opportunity for us to say, yeah, come on out of your houses, come back to the meetings. We're going to welcome you, and we hear what you say, and we're going to respect your wishes.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you. My name's Brent Emerson. Regarding the morality, and I would love to look at y'all, but I've been spent time on this and I wrote it out. And I need
That's
to
okay.
read it. Regarding the morality and spirituality of this, I've grown up here since birth, 1971, and this has been a surrounding church family atmosphere and environment, community, holding Sunday as reverent. I mean, that's from memory of growing up here, celebrating and worshiping the Lord Jesus, our Lord. And for Sunday, for afternoon lunch, for dinner with family and friends together, for good fellowship is nice, but allowing of alcohol by amending and lifting the restriction is not prosperous and well-being for the spirit and soul individually, and the community is how I feel. Therefore, I'm against amending the ordinance in the way that it's intended to be changed. Please consider the increase of negative, degrading effects that will have upon the atmosphere, environment, safety, and well-being of the people in the community by lifting the restriction that's in place, by opening a door, creating the intentions and provisions, like the Bible says, provisions of the flesh, of alcohol-serving establishments to be open that may not be open now on Sundays, and to be open for longer hours on Sunday that are currently in place, because I did look at some and their hours. If memory serves correctly, at the last meeting, talk about one of the alcohol-serving establishments coming before the planning board and then the commission. Previously, it's recorded, was asked about their long-term intentions, and they claimed they weren't here to change the way things were being done and would get along with current codes and ordinances. When they first applied for opening, they were asked about the restrictive laws that we have in High Springs, and they said they had no problem with the laws the way they were, had no intentions of making any move to change it. But now it seems there's a big push behind getting these laws changed. 2 more paragraphs. Knowing that the codes and ordinances were and are for some new businesses having come here in the last couple to a few years, and for already established businesses, why is it felt needing to change the laws just for the business? I ask you, this is it, how is revising to lift the restriction of this ordinance in place going to truly benefit businesses and quality of life in High Springs in a positive way for this grounded faith community? My conclusion is it will not. Thank you for your consideration and right discernment for making the righteous decision by faith. I trust on this matter because I believe you will. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Okay, we're going to close public comment. Oh, do I have one more? I'm sorry.
Good evening. I'm not speaking on behalf of the brewery or anything. I'm here to protest the last commission meeting's bid allotment for the city streets.
That would be in items not on the agenda, so can we table that for just a minute?
I didn't know that was.
That's
weren't
okay.
doing it. Okay.
There'll be a time for that, don't
Okay,
worry.
thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anything else on this ordinance? Yes, sir.
My name is Ronnie Munson. I'm a retired First Sergeant of the United States Army, 29 and a half years. I've dealt with soldiers and their families during that period, and this issue of alcohol has really messed up a lot of families. Matter of fact, has disintegrated families in many senses. Also, I'm 52 years in ministry, and I've dealt with people in our churches where they also had to deal with abuse, as was spoken before. And I'd like to say that I would recommend that we would do the wise thing tonight, as the Bible would tell us. Wine is a mocker, strong drink is raging, and whosoever is deceived thereby is not wise. And I would ask you to do the wise thing tonight and vote no against this change.
Thank you, sir. Yes, yes, ma'am.
Just would like, Christy Swilly, would just like to make a statement and just say that I don't think there's anybody in this room that can't tell a tragic story related to alcohol. And that's not to make light of anything that anyone has said here. But at the end of the day, this ordinance is not dealing with that. I know Mr. Emerson can probably relate to the time period in our middle school years when people that we looked up to came and fought to try and keep alcohol sales in High Springs out of the city limits on Sunday. Obviously, that has since gone away because we have 4 restaurants in town that serve alcohol on Sundays, and you do not have to buy food in order to drink. And all this is addressing is whether or not a business that does not have 51% of their revenue from the sale of food or non-alcoholic beverages can sell alcohol. So I think we need to take a look at that all this is repealing is that piece of the ordinance. Alcohol is still being sold in the city limits on Sunday. And so I just ask you to consider that from a little bit different perspective. So, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Commissioners and new City Manager. Thank you for being here and all of your support, and everybody's putting a lot of time into this. I know it's a big subject. I'm just here to state that I believe that, as Christy just said, it's, we have to kind of separate things here. The issue is that restaurants and bars are selling alcohol already on Sundays. We're just asking that a business be treated the same way. Whether or not they serve food in their own kitchen, I don't think is really the issue. I mean, they have a food truck every night, and as Chrissy just clearly pointed out, at any restaurant you can go to buy alcohol and not buy food. So I think we're just kind of mixing morality with the reality, and I think, in my opinion, we need to support local businesses that are helping this community and giving a lot back to this community. So I am in support of granting them permission to sell alcohol on Sundays. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, my name is Cheryl Munson. I shop in High Springs. I don't live in High Springs. I shop in High Springs. I go to church in High Springs. So I spend a lot of time in High Springs. And I always considered it a quaint little town since I've come here. Of course, we've all tried to stay away from drunk drivers on the road, and I remember seeing a carload of drunk men speeding out of a parking lot into the highway, driving erratically. One hung his head out the window, vomiting his way through traffic. I remember when we were in South Korea, walking to Camp Carroll, avoiding the vomit and the human feces on the sidewalks as I neared the gates of the post. I also remember spending a lot of time with my grandmother, but not my grandfather. He could afford alcohol, but not his family. He was a mean drunk. My mother had to drop out of school to help support the family. My uncle dropped out of school early, so his older brother could be the only one to finish school. The other children also had to drop out of school. I do not remember the times my grandpa spent with me and my oldest brother. Those few years that he quit drinking, I was too young to remember. But I remember as a teen, my grandpa came to the house with at least one of his boys from his new family. Grandpa left and came back later, not sober and quickly angered. I remember the friendly conversation we had been having went to fear. My father made him leave just as he was starting to approach me with his anger. I remember my great niece, Paige, almost to her destination, was struck by a drunk driver. She and her boyfriend were hospitalized. She was hurt worse of the two. She was 19. Her back was injured. Her leg was so damaged she needed a rod put in her leg. She will live with pain and trauma for life. I remember Mariah, only married a short time, hit by a drunk driver in a head-on collision. She was in her early 20s. Her recovery was long, her injuries many, and her pain much and continuing. I remember humiliation, disgust, poverty, broken relationships, unwind decisions, pain, suffering, and even death. What I don't remember are any stories that started with they were drinking and ended with such beauty and blessings and good. I just ask you to find some other way to get income into the city. I don't condone it, and I hope you won't either.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else? All right, we'll close public comment on this ordinance. Gentlemen, we all received a couple of letters that, we've seen, but most have not. Both were not in favor of modifying the ordinance. I'd like to just read a little bit of this. Please don't continue accepting the slogan that it will bring more money to town. Lots of things can and do bring money to town. That doesn't automatically make it acceptable. One thing that a lot of people are talking about is the impact of amplified music. I can tell you that I sat with people in town this past Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night that were in close proximity to outdoor music, and I was taken aback, but they were quite used to it. It's not that bad tonight. It was a lot to me, and it's not something that I'm impacted by. I don't hear it, and I think obviously the noise ordinance is a separate issue, but it's related. One of the gentlemen that I was sitting with on his porch recommended that I look into the relationship between loud music and alcohol consumption. And I did. And there is study after study after study that the louder the music you have, the more people are drinking. So it's good for business, but it may not necessarily be good for the people in town. We've got a long history with the brewery, and they have done a lot of good stuff in this community, and nobody doubts that at all. And classifying the family-friendly environment for some folks, I get that. That's okay. I don't mind going there with my 23-year-old son, but I wouldn't have gone there with him when he was 10. But that's just me. So, when you moved into town in 2019, Mr. Martin, you may not be able to speak to this. I'm not sure because Mr. Walker spoke a lot about how 3 administrations had been signing special use permits for places in town. And what I could tell was that was true, but I don't believe that Mr. Booth or Chief DeCourcy ever signed a permit for a Sunday opening for the brewery. I don't know if anybody could speak to that being accurate or not, but from what I was able to tell, that didn't happen until fairly recently. So I think we need to keep that at least within what I could find factually anyway. And the food trucks didn't used to be allowed here until the brewery brought food trucks. So we made a food truck ordinance, trying to make it so that they can feed people while they're there. And I can tell you that the restaurants in town have a great relationship with them. And they say nothing but good things about, people send people to our restaurant all the time. So I think that there's a really good symbiotic relationship there, no doubt. And I appreciate the brewery's role in the community. They do fundraisers. They help a lot of people. But the fact of the matter is that them being open on Sundays for the last few years, however long it's been, was still not in keeping with the ordinance. It was not. And so we've got a couple of different options here. Do we leave the ordinance as it is? Do we modify it to allow them a path to fill out a special use permit? In which case, if we do that, we've got to also modify the special use permit application because it requires the commission to approve that if there's alcohol sales involved, and I don't think that needs to be coming to us. I mean, I think the city manager could make that decision, but we would have to do both if we wanted to consider, allowing them to open for special events. And as I told Mr. Marshall when we met, I'm pretty pH neutral on this. I recognize the benefits, and I hear the concerns of the citizens. I really do. So I would open it up to any further comment you guys might have.
I believe this came up because of the St. Patrick's Day event. This has been in place. We have been doing this since the brewery been open, allowing them to submit a special event permit. So since they've been doing that, it really hasn't been any complaints.
Not from what I've heard. Chief Shepherd said he's not had any issues in terms of law enforcement.
So I don't think really adding the verbiage of them being open with a special event permit is really changing too much, because they've been open for the past, 6+ years now?
Since 2019, I think, was when they opened there.
Four.
Okay. So what you're saying is that even though it wasn't allowed by ordinance, it's been happening, which we didn't know, and we weren't involved in that side of it. But so functionally, it wouldn't change a lot of what's going on if we wrote that kind of language into the ordinance.
If we went that direction. Now, if we completely changed it and allowed them to be open every Sunday, that's a different ball game. But it would be the same as we're experiencing now if we do a special event permit.
Okay. Any other comments, gentlemen?
I have some. I hear what people are saying about, and I know people don't want bars. They don't want just standalone bars. I get that. We're not that type of town, and I understand people's concern for that. You got to go slow with stuff. So kind of my thought is the brewery has normally acted in a light of having food there, just like the other establishments. So I was kind of thinking about that, and I was like, okay, so how can we stick with the ordinance, but maybe modify a little bit in order to ensure, because I heard other citizens and I heard what they were saying about, hey, look, if you have food on the premises, people that are going to spend time there are also going to eat, less likelihood that they get intoxicated, maybe. So I thought, well, if we get rid of the 51% and maybe open it up that you have to have food sold on the premises, then you're basically doing the exact same thing as allowing the Pink Flamingo, the Watershed, Great Outdoors, and restaurants like that. That would also leave in place that you wouldn't have a standalone bar open up in the middle of High Springs. So these are kind of thoughts I've been having, and I want to be equitable to all businesses. I think we owe that to citizens, because I've heard a lot of citizens on the flip side say that they really would love to go there on a Sunday and enjoy the beautiful weather of Florida, watch some football, get something to eat. Of course, after church, because the football doesn't kick on till 1. But, those thought processes. And I think it's interesting, too, as I went around the town and looked, there's one place that serves alcohol in this town that you cannot sit at a bar. That would be the High Springs Brewing Company. I thought that was interesting, that you can't belly up to the bar there. You must get it and go sit at a table. And I don't know, just interesting thoughts I've had about that. But I do hear, and I agree, I don't want to name a bar off, but I don't want just standalone clubs in the middle of High Springs. That's just not the town we're in. And but I do think it's important for us to sit up here and be equitable as well. And I don't know, I think I'm hearing it from both sides, but if you do food, it's the same thing as having a restaurant open. And they don't serve liquor, which the other establishments do. So, I don't know, just thought processes. And then the ultimate would be, we talk about the citizens. There is another mechanism for this, and that is to kick the vote out to the citizens and put it on the ballot. You would have a huge turnout in November, and it would be the citizens' voice. And that's the ultimate. we really want to hear what they have to say, kick it out to them, and you know what? That's voted on and it's done. And then we can really stand behind it factually and say they want it or they don't. Those are my thoughts on it.
Mr. Martin, I have a question in terms of a food truck and requiring, can we legally require a business to engage with another entity? Because, the food truck issue was contentious in the beginning because they weren't allowed to have it. And then we modified things to make an ordinance so that they could have it, but can we mandate that?
I think you probably could. It would be something we would want to research and look into, both from a logistical and a licensing perspective. You would get into issues like, would the food trucks have to be maintained on premises, for example? Would it be for establishments that could maintain them on premises because they had the space and facilities to do so, versus if it was a standalone bar, for lack of a better term, that had no space? Would there be an element of discrimination between similarly licensed establishments where each were deriving less than 50% of their revenue from the sale of food? So we would need to look into it, but I think there's a possibility that something could be done there.
How, and this might be a question that Kevin or Chief Shepherd could ask, in order to have a food truck, though, they have to have a fire inspection every time. It's in the ordinance. How difficult is that process for you guys? I don't know.
You do with food trucks. So that
Well, I know that, but you were just over fire for a few weeks, so I thought you might have a sense.
2 weeks of knowledge.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Chief Shepherd knows.
Cannot accurately answer that question for you. So.
That's fine. I just didn't know, if anybody could speak to that. How does that play into it? Because I don't know how many people we have that can do fire inspections right now without the chief yet. Okay.
That'll work. There we
you go.
So we have 2 inspectors, soon to have 3, and then hopefully 4. And of course, we
Our requirements for podium.
Okay.
Good call. This is a bad look, Kevin. This is a bad look. Oh, man, wow. An audition.
It's for the stream. They can't hear, and then they get mad. All right. So as far as fire inspectors go within the High Springs Fire Department, we have 2 currently. When the new chief comes on, that'll be 3, and in about 6 months, I will be the 4th one. We'll also have the ability to have the county continue to do inspections for as long as they're willing, and we have that agreement in place. But to answer the question about fire inspections for a food truck, they have to renew their license through the Department of Health, and in order to renew their license through the Department of Health, they have to have an inspection. So it doesn't necessarily have to be us that does it, but they have to have a fire inspection done by someone in order to renew their license through the Department of Health. We just typically, if it's going to be a large-scale event, there's an ordinance that requires the city to do it. But again, all these food trucks that are coming through have valid licenses that are in place, so therefore their fire inspections are up to date.
Okay, so so they give that information to city staff when they have food trucks come in?
I don't believe that's required, is it?
It was in the ordinance, the food truck ordinance. That's what I'm hearkening back to that, so.
And I would have to look at the ordinance. I'm not
Okay.
familiar with the
Okay.
provisions of it.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily a drain on our staff. If they have their own inspection done, that's certified, we get that, everything's good.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Correct.
Okay.
And, you know, as far as to Commissioner Grunder's point of having food on site, if it wasn't necessarily a food truck, if the brewery offered some other food of some variety that was prepackaged, that wouldn't require them to get some sort of hot top or something like that, that they wouldn't have to have a fire inspection for.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Gentlemen, any more?
I guess my other question for the attorney, if it was taken to the ballot, like Commissioner Grunder said, would this make it a more permanent option? So like if the citizens voted one way, would that make it more permanent, like whatever they voted for?
It would depend on the way it went to the ballot. If it went to the ballot, obviously as an amendment to the charter, which is a possibility, then it would have a greater degree of permanence and longevity, because that's more difficult to change, because that can only be changed by the voters. If it went to the ballot as a mechanism to change the ordinance would always be subject to revision by the commission at any future date. We would need to look at your charter and see what the provisions are for ballot initiatives, for amendments to ordinances. Another avenue that you could look at would also be just a non-binding straw poll that would allow you to gauge the feelings of the citizens or the voters on the subject, and then based on that, the commission could come back and act on its own based on that, the feedback from that straw poll.
Like we recently did for the farmer's market.
Correct.
We did surveys for the farmer's market and got feedback from, there was pretty good response to that.
But a true non-binding straw poll would actually go on the ballot, so it would be a more formal
okay,
process
okay,
than the
okay.
farmer's market was. So it would effectively be putting it on the ballot, letting them vote, but it would be non-binding, and it could be used as guidance for the commission on future action.
Would it be possible to do something similar to what we did for the farmer's market? You know, just put in a little survey in people's utility bills, and if they want to send it in, respond? Because that way, it wouldn't be just citizens, it would be businesses as well that may or may not live here, but, you know, have a dog in the fight.
Absolutely. That's a possibility also, and probably a lot cheaper than a straw poll.
Cheaper is good. Mr. Marshall has seen our budget.
So it would be possible to put a survey similar to what you just did with the farmer's market. The farmer's market survey had just a little over 10% response rate, which when you do a survey like that, it's actually very good.
Yeah.
I don't see any reason why you can't, and that would gather you the feedback that you could do. If that's something you want to do, it's not that hard to do.
And you said that route is cheaper than putting it on the ballot?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Anything's cheaper than putting it on the ballot.
It is. Under my understanding, Angela, please correct me if I'm wrong, is the election supervisor charges us for each additional space that we add to the ballot. So if we add certain referendums so they set the ballot, the presidential election, Congress election, all that, but we have the option to put stuff at the end of the ballot. We pay a significant cost for that. And to answer your question, without looking at the numbers, I strongly believe if you wanted to go a fact-finding route, doing a survey through the utility bills, we could stuff a survey like we did with the farmer's market would be significantly cheaper than adding space to the ballot.
To get an answer on the food truck issue?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Yes, they are supposed to, food trucks are supposed to fill out a checklist for each location. They're supposed to provide a copy of their state license
Okay.
to city staff.
Thank you.
We got 10% back on that farmer's market?
It was something a little over just over 3,000 went out, and we got like 300 and
It was pretty
some
good.
teens, so right about the 10% mark.
If we put it on a ballot in 2024, you're going to have 3,500 instead of 300. If you put it on a ballot in 2024, you'll have probably 3,500 people vote on it and not 300. I think that's a better majority of the town.
Gentlemen?
I mean, I think if we went the ballot option, they would prefer it to be more permanent, because if we spend that kind of money to do it and then it's just today and then it can be changed tomorrow, that's a waste of time.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir, please.
So something to keep in mind with the survey that we did for the farmer's market, if you went that route, there is the possibility that the same person could vote multiple times. So if it's a ballot referendum, obviously they can only vote once. There are some stopgaps in place for things like SurveyMonkey where it looks at your email address, but you can just set up multiple email addresses and vote one way or the other multiple times.
Right.
If it looks at your IP address, well, you just turn off your Wi-Fi and you go on your cell signal. And that's not a static IP. That's
Right.
constantly changing.
Right.
And you can keep voting. So just something to keep in mind.
Well, that would be an electronic mechanism for soliciting the information. I was thinking keeping it simple and just going with a hard copy in
hard copy?
people's
Right.
utility
So,
bills.
so the farmer's market, we did both. The farmer's market, there was a physical hard survey.
Right.
And then there was the electronic survey. And I don't know what the breakdown was in terms of how many we got back hard and how many we got back electronic.
Okay.
But it was a combination, the 300 or 400 that we got back was a combination of electronic and hard copy.
Okay. Thank you.
That's correct. We didn't, I talked to Amy today, and that was one of our concerns, that people did both the hard copy and the online. There's no way we can really stop that. But to remind you, doing a survey, whether it be a hard copy or online, is just a way for you to gather facts at a cost-effective measure. If you want a great turnout and really hear from everybody, the ballot is, even though it's more cost-effective, you're getting more feedback. If you want a less formal, you could do the survey, either hard copy or SurveyMonkey. We can find a mechanism and try to put as many measures as we can for dual submissions. But it's just how varied of a formality do you want it, and how varied of a participation are you willing to accept?
Well, I mean, I'm most interested in hearing from the people who live here. If you put something out there electronically, anybody can respond. You know, somebody in Michigan could respond. They're not paying taxes here. So I would prefer to do whatever we could to limit the responses to people who live here and own businesses here. That'd be my preference. Yes, ma'am.
Could I?
Can you come up?
speak to that? Not that I'm against it. Sounds like a good idea, but just within the last week or so, we heard from the county commission that they're trying to find a way to re-vote the single-member districts. That was supposedly done and supposedly permanent, but obviously it's not. We have not yet heard how they're going to do a redo, but it obviously is not permanent.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to address.
Yes, sir.
What is our percentage versus paper copy as far as paying a bill? If, Angela, if you would know that, as far as people paying online versus a hard copy. Any way of us knowing that, or would we get a better response on a paper versus electronic?
Madam Mayor, I can give you statistics for that. I'd have to bring them back. We do have the ability to put additional papers in the bills. We can do that, or we can put memos on the bills if there's a link you want to provide there. But I can get that data for you. I just don't know off the top of my head.
Well, I was just trying to keep from having a second vote on an issue
Yes, sir.
versus electronic payment versus the paper payment.
So Diane, are you saying that all utility bills are not hard copy?
But a lot of
Okay.
people And when they go to pay their bill online, we can make it that there's an automatic notice. So when we need to let them know about, we're going to talk about water rates or whatever, we can put it on the system where they go in to pay, so it flashes up a, you have to read this before you go on, so they don't miss it.
Okay.
So it's an option.
Okay. Well, we've discussed a lot of different issues, gentlemen. Do we have a preferred direction in terms of how we want to go from here? We've heard from a lot of folks here, and I sure appreciate everybody being so respectful. I'm so grateful to you all.
I mean, I'll just reiterate my thought, and it's such a hot button topic in High Springs. It's the third rail that nobody wants to touch, and I get that. I think we go to the ballot, let the citizens pick, and then we close it down and we don't bring it back up. And then we shut it down, however we do that, or we do whatever they want us to do. And then, because if it's going to keep coming back up, and I don't know why it came back up this time, but I mean, I guess you're right, Commissioner Miller. It must have been the St. Patrick's Day thing that was put on there. But I think we send it out to the vote, let them vote, and let's be done with it. And let's hear what they want to say. I mean, it's such a hot topic. I have zero issues voting on anything else, but this thing right here, this is so divisive in this community that the citizens need to decide. And that way we can come up here and sit here and say, the citizens made the decision. This is what it is. We're going to do what they want. We're going to go at the direction of the citizens of High Springs, Florida. There's no more true way to do that than in a presidential election year at the polls. And then we don't have to sit here and keep dredging it up and bringing it up, and I don't know. I say we just send it out and let's be done with this.
So then that would table any discussion on it for now and then wait and bring it back until after the presidential election.
Yeah, and then we do exactly what the citizens want.
But, I mean, you still got to put it on the ballot some kind of way.
Right.
Now,
Yes.
let's back up for a second now. Basically, when this came up again, these guys were talking about a special permit.
Yes, sir.
Am I correct?
Yes.
And that's what I thought it was all about, a special permit.
That's an option.
And that's where we're going. Let me say this. This is a very hot issue. It's a very divisive issue. Because I remember the years when we didn't serve alcohol in High Springs at all. The citizens of High Springs came together and spoke intelligently to one another instead of hollering at one another. And this is what the resolution that we came up with to try to make everybody. We're going to please everybody, but to please the majority of the people in High Springs. Because I'm telling y'all, it tore people apart. This issue tore people apart. So I thought the issue in the bill now is about them having a permit for special occasions.
That's an option.
That's what I'm thinking. So why would we change something that's, I ain't gonna say it's good for everybody, but we compromised and made it suitable for everybody. So why we can't some kind of way, city manager, when they come with their special permit, 6 times a year, 5 times a year, whatever, special events, he can sign off on the permit to allow them to do a special permit. Because I'm right now, 51%, I'm not changing that. Because I don't want bars in High Springs. That's me. I don't want it on Sundays. Ain't a religious thing, but it's where it worked. Those several years back, it worked. It worked, and it was working. It'll keep coming up. So if it's some kind of way we can fix it for them to do a special permit on whenever that Sunday, whatever special holiday they want to do it on, fix it for them. City manager, read over it, and sign off on it. And that'll fix their issue with the permits, because that's what it's all about.
That's definitely an
when
issue,
it's all
yes, sir.
started.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's how this issue became an issue.
Yes.
Like I was stating earlier, we were doing a process, but the process was not legal.
That's right. That's right.
The city manager shouldn't have been whoever signed off on it.
Right.
Shouldn't have not been signed off according to the ordinance.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
But
So-
if we can fix it some kind of way,
Yeah, all you gotta do is put verbiage on it.
yeah,
That's all you
for
gotta
the
do.
city manager to review it. Now, I ain't talking about every Sunday now. Give them a special meeting every Sunday. But on occasions. So why we can't,
That could absolutely be a motion, sir.
yes.
Absolutely. I mean, Mr. Marshall, would you be comfortable with that process?
To answer your question, yes. I watched the previous commission meetings, and that's how the topic came up about putting a mechanism in there for it. If it's left up to me, I would have to, unless there's a different intent, I would have to understand what the legislative intent is for a special permit. The way I understand from previous commission meetings, I would only approve a permit on holidays and significant events, Pioneer Days and events. It would not be in every Sunday, it would be limited, and I would use personal discretion on it, but while I'm city manager, it would be holidays and special events. Special events could be a city-sponsored event, or, unless I'm told different, they are doing I'm talking a limited scope of what's gonna constitute for me to pass a special use permit unless I'm giving other direction by the commission. It will not add that much work to my plate, it's just reviewing a special permit. I've done it before. That is a mechanism that could be done.
Yes, sir.
So we can work with the city manager to come back with proposed language
Okay.
at a future meeting, if not the next one, the one after that, for the commission to discuss. Probably as a savings for the manager would probably have some language that defined the special events where, or what would qualify as a special event to be eligible for the special permit for the service of alcohol on a Sunday, and we can look at other municipalities and how they've handled that, and get some guidance on some language as well, and then bring something back for you to chew on and take shots at, and send us back one more time to revise it one more time before you vote on it. So
That's the process.
Again, just as a reminder, I will not be here the next 2 meetings. I'll
Right.
be on a trip.
Right.
So if you do push this off to a future meeting and want my input or any, I'm good with whatever I'm told. I just do as what I'm told. But if you want input from me, I'm not going to be available the next 2 meetings.
Okay. Well, I think you've made your position pretty clear, you know, I mean, yeah. So, gentlemen. We have a motion.
So we're looking for a motion to draft wording for a special permit? Or do we need to vote on this ordinance and,
Madam Mayor, there's nothing that requires the commission to vote on the ordinance before you. If you wanted to do anything, you could call for a motion, and if there's silence, then it would fail for lack of action. And as to the coming back with language for a special permit or a special events permit, unless there is additional input from the commission, I have what I need, I believe, and the consensus of the commission to come back. I don't know that I need a motion on that. I think I've heard what you're kind of looking for, and we'll bring something back.
I'd just like to make sure that it's really clear so that, we all know, we're coloring within the lines. Do what we can to support the brewery, trying to help the community, doing what we can to support what the people want. And, not that I mind Mr. Walker working on a Saturday, but the fact that he was accessible enough to whoever to be called on a Saturday to call me saying we didn't get our way, I don't want that to happen. That's not the appropriate order of operations, and that shouldn't. He should be able to watch his son play baseball and not. So long as there are clearly defined lines, that's my goal.
And that was our concern too when all of that came to light.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Sharon Decker. Are y'all talking about Pioneer Day this weekend? Because
We're talking about just the brewery right now.
I know, but they're supposed to be open this Pioneer weekend. Is that?
That's true. They normally are. I don't know.
We have some of our vendors down there.
I don't know how we would handle that, because I know that's a big weekend for the whole city. Is there an opportunity for us to vote on just that, independent of this ordinance, or no? stepping too far outside the lines, because I get that that could be a really big weekend for them.
Well, not only that, our overflow might have to go down there.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think I would recommend that the commission not act, but that city staff operate in the way it has customarily acted under these circumstances over the past few years without commission action. If that, in other words, you've acted a certain way for special events over the past several years without action, and I would not deviate from that on this occasion. I would stay the course based on the way things have been done.
So opening up the opportunity for them to be open the Sunday of Pioneer Day weekends.
If that is the way it has been handled, notwithstanding the ordinance for the past several years, I would recommend maintaining that trajectory on this occasion as well, and then get everything properly codified with the special permit for future events.
Mr. Marshall, would you be comfortable with that approach?
I would.
Okay.
That'd be fine.
Gentlemen, are you okay with that approach?
As long as that's what we've been doing in the past.
Well, it is,
But
but
we've been going against our ordinance by doing it in the past.
that's very true. That is true.
None of that makes sense, meaning that we're going to agree to continue doing wrong.
That's true. You're right. You're right. That's fine.
I mean, what I would say is if you want city staff to take a course of action that is different from the way it has been handled in recent years, I would give that direction. If you don't want them to deviate, then I would not take any further action on it at all.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion for however you want to
Well,
proceed,
I would make
gentlemen.
a motion that you all go and revise it. I mean, put the verbiage that city manager said, and then we come back and review it.
So your motion is to direct the city attorney to revise the ordinance allowing for special use permit applications to be submitted to the city manager for approval.
Right.
Okay. We would also need to be cognizant of the verbiage in the special use permit and modify that as well.
Yes.
So,
I think you're going to have a whole new package when this is all
yes, sir.
done.
Yes, sir. Okay. Do we have a second for that motion?
I'm trying to figure out what we're doing here.
What Commissioner Miller just motioned is that we direct the attorney to revise the ordinance to allow the brewery
I thought we didn't need a motion for that. I thought we just needed to give you directions to do so.
I'm planning on coming back one way or another with a new ordinance.
I don't think we need a motion for
So
that.
we don't need a
motion
motion
for
and a
that,
vote?
But a motion and a vote certainly solidifies things. I'm not
Okay.
going to object to it. I just didn't want to have to force y'all to articulate one when I was hearing loud and clear what it was you were asking.
Okay.
For. So.
Yeah, because what we're discussing tonight is the ordinance. It wasn't about this special permit. Am I correct?
Yeah, I think that's what
Yes.
Yeah, and
prompted it,
that's
but
where
it's
I'm going,
not-
because
Yes,
it's not
sir.
on the agenda for, but we can't direct them.
Okay.
And it's just die because of lack of a motion or whatever.
With that being said, you bringing back a package for the ordinance. We will be able to agree or disagree once you bring the packet in to make modifications if we so choose to do so.
Yes, sir.
Oh, absolutely. I really, just because of where this is coming from and the history on this particular issue, it's my expectation that we're going to bring you something back that we're going to have to probably take back a couple of times and work on, and it may even be ripe for maybe a workshop setting to discuss some of the issues to give us some clarity after we dig into it. This will be back in front of you several times before you get something that you're ready to vote on, I suspect.
And in the meantime, we can be doing this while we're deciding whether we're going to put it on the utility bill or the county or national
Well,
ballot.
my understanding is that this was the motion that
Okay.
Commissioner Miller wanted to
Understood.
modify the ordinance, allowing for special use permit applications and with no discussion of putting it in utility bills. Is that correct, Commissioner Miller?
Right. I mean, if you all want to do another motion, that would be up to you all. So,
I would like to do a motion that we put it on the ballot and let the citizens decide once and for all. Let their voice be heard loud and clear.
Can we open it up, Mr. Martin, to more public input?
That
At
would
this
be
point?
a new, if it receives a second, that would be a new proposition that would be open to public
Okay.
input.
So not yet. Okay. No second. So then, are we just directing the attorney to bring it back to us, allowing for special use permits? Okay, so that's our direction at this point, with no need for a motion and a second.
I'm going to bring that back, and you can, at a future
Okay.
meeting, say, yeah, we're done with that. We don't want to consider that.
Okay.
If that's the case, then we'll move on.
Okay. Now, can we open it back up to public comment, or no?
Certainly.
Okay. Yes, sir? Well, there were a couple of people who raised their hands. I wanted to comment.
Opens up to ballot, does that not do away with any votes by business owners who don't live in the city limits?
Yes, sir.
So basically, whether it's any business, High Springs, I don't know where he lives, but I mean, anybody, so, okay.
Yes, sir.
Just asking.
Yes, sir. Did you have something?
My question to you is, how much do you want to spend to keep rehashing something over and over and over?
Mm-hmm.
We don't have the money now.
Mm-hmm.
Julie Tapia Ruano. We've heard all of the talk. We've made many appeals to many different directions. And what we first heard was, let's stop kicking this down the road. Another 5, another 6 months, another meeting, come back with another ordinance. Can we not get to, as I said 2 weeks ago, to leave the ordinance as is with a special permit process that is limited and restrictive and can be done, I had said commission last time, but I'm changing that to say done administratively, either through clerk or manager. Can we not get that done tonight and be on to the better business of the High Springs?
No.
Madam Mayor, if I can respond to that. They've done all that they can do tonight on the issue. What you're asking for would require an ordinance, and so that would, at a minimum, require something in writing with 2 readings, but we would want to make sure it's crafted well enough to be implemented without issue, so.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Janet Evans. Thank you for letting me come back up to the mic again. This is exactly why I said what I did. It seemed like it was taken, what I was saying was really out of context. The first thing was the keep coming back again to kind of discuss the same issue. The third thing, or the next thing was regarding past practice. We're talking about setting a precedent and all of that stuff, which makes it even more important that we follow the ordinances, we follow the rules that are already in place. And when things like this come up, we say, oh, we made a mistake, sorry, we don't do that anymore because we're following the orders that we've got. The third thing is this idea of a precedent, that whatever we do, it sets a precedent, and that's even more reason why we have to be so careful, because it's the place down the hall, it's the event that happened last month. Every single thing that we do then is open to being picked apart by somebody who either wants to do the same or do something different. And so I really, when I heard this whole thing coming up, it's not the brewery, it's not the Sunday thing. What I'm seeing is the confusion that our city has had. And that's why I brought up this mural thing, because the confusion that our city has put in, and even now we're talking about changing ballot and all that kind of stuff, when, like Commissioner Williams said, well, weren't we supposed to come here and talk about this? It is muddy waters. It's confusing and it's frustrating for the community members.
Thank you.
My name is Kathy. I just have one question. As litigious as society is today, can you sit there and say we have an ordinance and we know that we're doing wrong now, but we're going to continue to do wrong?
Any other comment?
I more just have a question that I was thinking about while y'all were talking about that straw poll thing where you put it in there and everything. My question was, can't the citizens of High Springs and business owners alike already see what's on the agenda for High Springs City Council to discuss in these meetings? And can't people already come out? I know I've been here for last year's meeting and then this year's meeting, and I can tell you if you go back and count people who came up to this podium, the majority of them were against not changing or not removing the ordinance. I feel like that already answers that straw poll question, but maybe I don't know. But that would be a concern of mine, is that's what these meetings are for, is to hear from the community.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I remember that meeting last year too, sir, and I remember the majority of the people getting up not living in the city limits of High Springs. That's why I wanted to push it out to a poll. That way, we actually have a true understanding of what the city members of the city people of High Springs want, the residents.
May I approach one more time?
Madam, I don't think we need to keep discussing this back and forth like
Okay.
this. I think we need to move on. I think we're gonna make the direction to the
To the attorney?
attorney.
Yes, sir.
On this particular item, so while we keep.
Yeah, because even if we do even if it comes back, we can do a whole new change, so.
That's
we
true.
might as well go ahead and let it do.
Let's go.
Okay. So then I guess we're going to close that
Madam Mayor,
item.
I just got one.
Yes, sir.
For my clarity.
Yes, sir.
Pioneer Days for the brewery. What is the commission deciding? How am I directing city staff to handle that?
According to us, we can't do it.
Can't do it? I just want to make sure I
That's the
clear
law.
it. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We already have vendors down there, and we already have a permit.
But that permit got nothing to do with it.
Your permit has nothing to do with the brewery, though.
No, but when we have an overflow, we have to put them somewhere, so I've worked with them that we have some there.
But they still can go in there,
They
right?
can go in there.
Because we don't have enough room up here for everybody.
Yeah, so they can go inside there, they just can't serve alcohol that day, according to our ordinance.
But is that for Sunday as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
For
Sunday only.
For
Saturday
Sunday
you
only.
can.
Yeah, Saturday.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for your participation. I really appreciate it. Unfinished business item number 3. Purchasing 11 sewer lift station pumps for $189,000. We've got quotes here, and I think Diane was able to answer the question earlier about the funding source, so we know where it's going to come from, and we know we have the money to pay for it. Correct? Okay. I have one question, a couple questions on the grinders. What will be the cost to install them? Is that something that we do internally, or is that something that we outsource? Will there be any additional cost?
What's Tom? Oh, he gone.
I don't have the answer to that.
Okay.
I will say these pumps are needed.
Yep.
We cannot wait on them.
Yep.
We got to buy them. When these pumps go down, we don't have the money for a fine. I would recommend that, I can't sway you, but I can tell you we need these pumps purchased. If there's an additional cost, it's going to take at least a month for these pumps to come in, is what I was being told by Tom. If there's an additional cost, since I don't have that answer for you, I can bring that additional cost to you. Either which way, it'll come out of the same funding source. in spirit of expedition is if it's less than, which I don't think it would be, but if it's less than 25 grand, I can authorize it right away. If it's more, I'll bring it to the next commission meeting.
Okay.
But I do recommend, staff recommends purchasing these pumps ASAP.
And Diane, I don't know if you know the answer to this or not. It says here estimated delivery 2 to 3 weeks. Would we be billed for them before they are shipped, or will we be billed for them when they arrive?
Not been told that we typically don't prepay for things.
Okay.
We may pay a percentage, if it's a larger item.
Sure.
I have not been told that we are to prepay anything on that.
Okay.
So my assumption would be the normal process that comes in, we get invoiced, inspect the equipment, and if it are
Okay.
pieces, and then we pay after.
Okay.
And I do think that, from talking to Thomas and Jason, that some of the pumps are smaller. They're not all the exact same pumps. So I think we have some wiggle room in that budget, that if there's extra charge for installation, we would have room for that. I feel like I had that conversation about whether they were installed by ArcMet or not. I can't remember.
Okay. Well, I understand the need. The fact that we know where the funds are coming from and that we have the funds was my main concern, so.
That's what we had the issue with last time, well, not
Yeah,
last time.
yeah. So gentlemen, do you have any input, any comment?
I got a question here.
Yes, sir.
I see that I've highlighted something here, sole provider.
Yes, sir.
Is there no way we have another company, no other pump?
That's correct.
We got one company that's gonna supply them, and there's no bidding on that or nothing?
Correct, it's the one company.
So we're kind of
Is
handcuffed
that
here.
right, Diane? Am I correct?
My understanding is that the pump that would be appropriate was only distributed by one distributor, and that's the sole source side of it. I was unclear, and I asked a few questions about that.
We got that letter, yeah.
Yes,
Saying they're
yes.
the only ones who sell it.
Yes.
That's my
So
understanding.
my understanding is it's more specific to that pump is only able to be sourced by that distributor. So we may need to talk to Thomas some more about that, I don't.
Yeah, it looks like they come out of Connecticut, but these folks here in DeBerry are the only approved distributor for that pump. Okay. Any other questions? Any questions from the audience? We lost about half of them. All right, gentlemen, do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we purchase the pumps, and we wanted to do it out of infrastructure funds, correct? That was where we, yeah, instead of, yeah.
Okay.
I make a motion, that's the motion.
Second.
All right, it has been properly moved and seconded that we purchase the pumps for $189,000 for the lift stations. All those in favor, say aye. 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 Those opposed? All right. Next unfinished business item, discuss, consider, and act on purchasing a sewer bypass pump. Total cost for this is $47,000, $47,185, but that's just for the pump. If you look on the second page, there's also separate cost for the hoses and fittings, so the actual total cost is going to be $49,773. And these quotes are from November of 2023. Are they still valid? Will they honor these quotes? Because I know how quickly things are changing right now.
If Thomas can't answer that, we can check directly with the vendor on Monday.
Okay, okay.
And same with this, is this biddable item to be bidded? Or is this worth doing that for this? To maybe possibly come up with the same equipment at a cheaper price? Same quality?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to
I
that.
believe when we talked about it before, that this was the special government contract pricing, and it's
I
like you
see.
have to sell it for this amount.
Right.
And it was easier to go with this company, because I believe it's the same company. And so it was cheaper on freight to go ahead and throw it all together and ship them up.
Yeah, with
Okay.
government contract pricing, it's usually about the cheapest you can get.
Okay.
So I see that here.
So I remember we asked that same question, like we couldn't look outside, and with every freight and everything else, I remember we had that conversation.
Okay. So then, Diane, between those, if we go ahead with this bypass pump and the 11 pumps for the lift stations, we are at $238,773 total. And we have the money for that, okay. All right, gentlemen, any other questions or comments? Any questions or comments from the audience?
Do we have the right equipment? Are we putting these in? Was that answered a while ago?
This
or-
is a bypass pump.
all-
So this would be
bypass, that's
an
correct.
external, yeah.
I got you.
So there shouldn't be much in the way of putting it together, otherwise just connecting the hoses and fittings and whatnot, so. All right, so no other comments or questions? I'll entertain a motion, gentlemen.
And just a quick question, should we make a motion to, with an overage of, I don't know, 5, 10 grand, just in case the price does go up, so that we don't slow this down to the point where, because from what I've talked to Thomas about it, I've talked to Brad Riddle, who's thank God he's willing to give up his free time like he is, and we're up against the wall here. If something busts, we're gonna have a bigger problem than $50,000.
To answer your question, you can modify your motion to give staff authority to spend up to. So if it's 40, I'm not telling you, I'm not giving you, I'm just giving you an arbitrary number. It's 47,000. You can give staff the authority to spend up to 55,000. If anything's over 55,000, we have to come back to the commission. Considering that's a year old, and it's contract pricing, I don't think it's gonna be that much more, but I do expect it to be a little bit more to what you see.
Okay.
Okay. Then I would make a motion that we purchase the pumps with up to a $10,000 overage, if need be.
That would put us at $60,000, just so you know,
Yeah.
with the hoses and fittings.
Do we have that in that infrastructure? Okay.
Okay.
And I don't know if I probably can't amend the one before, but I agree with the going up to on that other one, just because those are the real pumps that we really, 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 really need. How do we?
Those
The one we
are,
already passed, that's just buying the pumps.
yeah.
That's just buying the pumps. I'm going to find out if we're installing or if somebody else is installing. It'll take several weeks.
If the pump prices are elevated, because likely they
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
from what this is.
Can they retract their original passage?
So they would have, whoever was on the prevailing side would have to offer a motion to reconsider. Vote on the motion to reconsider. That would bring the original motion back to the floor.
Okay.
And then you could act on the original motion.
Okay, should we go ahead and finish out this motion that's already on the floor? I know, but I don't know if we want to let that die. If we just second it, it would get this motion through with a little bit of overage.
Mm-hmm. And then go back and open up the other one.
Are they in direct conflict with each other?
They are not,
Oh,
no.
okay. Then I would say finish what you've got
Okay.
and then go back.
Okay. All right, so Vice Mayor Grunder has motioned that we approve this with a cap of $60,000. Any seconds?
Second.
All right, it has been properly moved and seconded that we purchase the bypass pump for up to $60,000. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? All right.
And then,
You wanna
Madam Mayor,
reopen
I
that
would
one?
like to reconsider, what was that, unfinished business item what?
Number 3.
I would like to reconsider, what the 3 was one we just, no, unfinished business item 3 on my motion.
Mm-hmm.
And so that would now take a second to reconsider it.
You can just amend the motion to.
If it
It's
was
already been
voted
voted
on,
on.
then
Second.
we've got to bring
This is
it back
going
to the
back to the
floor.
grinder pumps now.
Second.
Okay, so it's been properly moved and seconded that we reconsider modifying the motion on approving the purchases of the 9 new pumps.
And then I would make a motion that we approve buying it with a caveat that.
We have to vote on that
We'd have to
first?
vote on the
Oh, I'm
motion to
sorry.
Okay,
reconsider.
that's okay, that's okay. All right, so it's been properly moved and seconded that we reconsider purchasing the sewer lift station pumps. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Okay, and so
Okay.
now the original motion is back on the floor as if it were never voted on.
Oh, yeah.
And so you can offer an amendment to it.
Yes, sir.
And then vote on it as amended.
So I would
Okay.
like to amend my motion and add, how much do we want to add on that? I mean, what do we think?
I mean, 10% is almost another $20,000.
Should we say up, you have spending authority up to 25. We know we have to have them. We
Right.
have ARPA if we need to, and we're getting the 1.2 back. If we had to go another 25 over, I would still approve it. That would be
We
my
still
thought.
have that much, though. Yes, we do. From that funding source, so I think that's probably a wise way to
Okay.
go, just to make sure we can get them.
Yeah, we need, this is a necessity. We can't keep kicking this one or else.
So Vice Mayor Grunder has motioned that we approve the purchase of the 9 new pumps with an overage up to $25,000. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, one second? All right, it's been properly moved and seconded that we approve the purchase of the 9 new pumps, allowing for $25,000 over the total cost estimated here. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, nicely done.
It's on sweat over here.
There you go. Okay, now, item G, citizen requests and comments for issues not on the agenda. Please state your name for the record and limit your comments to 5 minutes.
Get short.
Yes, sir.
But I would like to protest the last bid awardment for the city streets. The little background on that, the last bid that was awarded to this company, the city allowed under previous management, a late bid to show up after the bids were opened, which they said that is because the post office didn't deliver it. Nobody can prove chain of command, and that company did not follow complete scope of work, and they were paid for it. 2 examples of that would be next to Ace Hardware. The road was supposed to be taken up down to dirt. There is a concrete road under most of High Springs. Whitehurst back 25, 30 years ago believed that they could pave over top of the concrete streets. It doesn't work. And the company took up the bump that was by Ace Hardware, and that bump is now sinking. They paved over top of that concrete. They did not mill it up. They did not follow scope work on that. And now it is holding water on Dr. Ian Dennis's property and Ace Hardware, causing potholes and damage to their parking lot. The bigger section that I have a complaint with them about is the fact that by the cemetery, that road was supposed to have been 20 feet wide, the entire 985 feet.
You're talking on the way to the BMX track? I'm
Yes,
sorry to
ma'am.
interrupt you. Okay.
At the narrowest part, it is a little under 14 feet, and that is where cars turn in and out of. I wish I would have as many people call me for work as they are thinking that I am the one who did these streets and complaining to me about it. They believe that I am the one doing it because we're from High Springs. And I have to tell them, no, that was not me. And this last bid that was awarded to the same company, they filed under the wrong RFP. So they filed, from what I was aware at the opening, they filed as they were going to seal coat the city streets. And I was told at that opening that we were the lowest bid. And going forward, would it get voted on? I did not hear anything about it, and all of a sudden, I find out we're not the lowest bid. So I don't know what happened there, if the RFP was correct on theirs and I misinterpreted, but as of me and 4 other people that were there at the opening, other contractors, we believe that they were in the wrong RFP. But I could be wrong, I don't know. But if a company doesn't follow scope of work and they were allowed a late bid, are they still allowed to continue on with cheap work? Because the next street's taken up, there's a large section of concrete road taken out. It's very expensive to do. And I don't see how they're going to follow complete scope of work at the price they're doing it at, considering they haven't followed their scope of work in the past.
Can you tell me how you know they didn't, because this is your wheelhouse, not mine. I mean, obviously 14 feet instead of 20 feet, you can measure that. How do you identify? Is it just because there are pockets and it's starting to subside?
By the Ace Hardware?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there was, I'm sure everybody knows that the hump that was there that stopped
yes.
everybody from
Oh,
going
we all
out.
know that hump.
Well, now there's no hump there.
Right.
It is starting to sink.
Okay.
But the biggest point of contention is every other contractor bid to take that road up with the concrete.
Gotcha.
At the very minimum, you had to mill off the asphalt. The company did not do it. So everybody was bidding something completely different. And especially when you talk the road that was done that's only not 20 feet wide, yeah, that's a problem for us. Because that's supposed to be a double lane road. People are supposed to be able to pass. Cars are not 7 foot wide.
Right.
So I don't know, is there any way for me to protest properly, since they have not issued a statement or an email saying that that is the company they're going to go with?
Martin, can you speak to that from a legal perspective, sir?
And forgive me, I was actually checking with our office on
Okay.
a related matter, which was Commissioner Grunder's request for local preference and procurement ordinance, so I wasn't hearing all of the intricacies on that, but I do know that you had that request as well. If you could repeat the question for me.
I would like to protest the company that was awarded the bid because they did not follow scope of work previously. They were allowed a late submission after the bids were opened, and they've allegedly, from what I know, and I could be wrong, but on their paperwork, they had a wrong filing for the estimates. Their paperwork said that they were bidding on seal coating and doing parking lots, not roads. Now, I could be wrong. I have not seen their paperwork. But at the time, that's what we all, at the opening, heard.
So you submitted a bid in response to this bid request as well?
Yes, we did.
Okay. And when were those bids opened?
Would look back at that. I do not know exactly what the date is.
Within the last week or two or several months ago?
So it was voted on last week, so it had been 1 month ago.
About a month ago. I can look and see. Usually the protest deadline is 30 days in most ordinances. So
Right.
while I'm sitting here, let me look at that and see if I can get you an answer, given that we're right at the cusp
Yes.
of what may be the deadline.
But they never sent out a notice to the emails to the contractors of intent to go with that company, because it should be from the intent letter sent out, is what we dealt with in the past, is
Okay, and it would
protest.
depend on the city's ordinance as to what
Okay,
triggers it.
I don't know the High Springs ordinance very
Right.
well when it comes to that, since it's been so many years since they've really been doing city streets.
Let me take a look and see if, and maybe by the time we get to attorney comment, I can give you
Okay,
an
thanks,
answer.
sir.
Nothing else, though, City Manager, I'd really like to find out if maybe we should freeze this until, I'd like to have that investigated, because if we did ask for things, we have not heard any of this. We heard that everything went smoothly, it went great, they were a great company to work with. If that's not the case, we need to know.
Yes,
We need
sir.
to-
Yes, sir.
We need to redo this and open it back up, especially if scope of work's not been done. They need to go out there and do the actual scope of work they were paid for.
Can I give you clarification?
Yes,
on
please,
the
ma'am.
bid
Yes,
opening? Okay, so at the bid opening, he's correct. Their bid had the wrong bid number. So it was 2021, 2024-01 and 2024-02. They had the correct title, not the right, they just put 01 and 02. They swapped the numbers. So yes, when we were opening it that day, as staff, all three of us, we were opening and putting it down. We caught it after everybody had left, and we were going through the numbers, and Thomas was reviewing it. He caught that the specs and stuff that they gave us, it was for the other bid. It was just that 2024-0 whatever, the title was correct.
So that does not trigger it to be a disqualified
It
submittal?
was just like a typo, but a handwritten.
So the city can overlook minor technicalities like
Okay.
that. And given that you voted on it based on a staff recommendation that overlooked that, I would say that you've overlooked that technicality. If there were material misrepresentations as part of the response, based on their ability to do the work and things like that, that may be a different issue. This is one where if he's able to file a protest at this point, we would have to respond to it within the city's procurement ordinance or policy. And I'm looking for an ordinance now. Do you know if it's an ordinance or a policy that the city follows, Ms. Stone?
I think it's ordinance with the policy attached, but I can't get on my system to look it up for you. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
we may have to confer
Yeah.
after the meeting
I'm
on
sorry,
this.
I can't get to the S drive from here. I'm having problems with my computer. So.
And I appreciate it, Ms. Stone, for your clarification, because
Yeah.
I never got a phone call or anything to clarify what that was, so I really appreciate that. But, yeah, it still doesn't go back to my main point is, if I'm beating fair and square in a bid, that's fine. If people are not doing quality work and what they should be doing, and everybody's bidding on the same thing, I have an issue with that.
Yes, sir.
We just want, if somebody can do it cheaper and do it just as good or better, I'm all for it. But when there's stuff that they're not following, that's kind of an irritation. And
Yes, sir.
we've been kicked out and know of people who've been kicked out for not striping after we got done by 3 feet. So we weren't allowed to bid on stuff, let alone miss a street that bad. So I just want to go over that and just ask some questions and bring it to your attention. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you coming
Madam
and
Mayor,
speaking.
may I
Yes, sir.
engage conversation with Mr.
please,
Mr.
please.
Blankenship? I know the road you're talking about. I have a family member that lives down there, and I was just there Tuesday at that home plate side of the Park Road versus going across and then down the Cemetery Road. There's no way two cars are gonna go through there. What were you gonna have to do to make two vehicles be able to go down that passing one another? Because it is not 20 feet there. And there's no way it can be, obviously, with the trees. Was you going to have to take the trees down?
So as my father likes to do on his estimates, he doesn't just put it just, well, we're doing X, like a very vague. It was very precise of where either the city can take the pine tree out or we're taking the pine tree out, going to add base to it, which there was two ways you could do that road. You can pave a leveling course, so you can do 2 layers of asphalt, or you can bring in a limestone base, pack it, and then pave a final layer. But either which way, that tree had to come out. There was no way to do that quickly. So and going forward, since they won the bid and they filed the right stuff, I want to make sure that when they go to do this other street that's going to be right next to you, that they're taking the concrete up. Because paving over top of that is just wasting the city's money.
So in our bid, that was supposed to be 20 feet straight all the way down towards the BMX track, and it's not
Correct.
there. And we accepted that job and paid this company the money that
Would
didn't do the job.
Yes, sir.
So is that a
That's
Diane?
unacceptable.
Yes,
So is
sir.
that a Diane? So can you actually go back to that company? The fact that we paid them for a job that they didn't do to fix what they did not do.
I will have to talk to the city manager and Thomas
an
about
attorney
it.
letter
It
right
was
there.
signed off by public,
want money
the
back.
process of paying the vendors is that the department that orders work approves it, signs off on it, and we pay it. So I would have to talk to Thomas, since he's who signed off on it, to find out what the story is behind that.
Then I can also see where Thomas being overloaded with the public works, the water and everything else, how it, depending on who was at time and everything else, where that can get overlooked. But I just want to make sure that going forward, that nothing is getting overlooked and they're being monitored.
Yes, sir.
Because I've never been able to do a job and somebody's not over my shoulder nitpicking the heck out of us. So I just want to make sure everybody's being held to the same standard.
Yes, sir.
That's
Yes, sir.
pretty much all I want. I want roads that are going 25 years.
Yes, sir.
Not something that, oh, we got to go back and fix that and waste
We
some
need
more.
roads to go 25 years.
We
That-
do.
And
We need-
roads should go 25 years. That's what they should in High Springs, so that's what we're hoping for.
So going back to his other point down there by Dr. Dennis and Ace Hardware. So it's sinking. That's going to be another issue that we as city are going to have to deal with.
In all reality of my professional opinion and that of other companies, that road was a waste of money.
So we paid a contractor to do that job,
That
and it's not
road, that
complete.
road should have been taken up and fixed down to the base. That way you wouldn't have problems with it. But if you go by there, it's already cracking. Everywhere there was a concrete joint, it's cracking. It's going to do the same thing that all the other roads did. And yeah, it was going to be to take it all up. You're going to put out Ace Hardware and the daycare. They're going to be mad, but that was every bit of a 3 to 5 day job to take that up. I know nobody wanted to interfere with business that long, but taking
Well,
those
you gotta do it.
taking those old
You gotta do it
concrete
right.
roads up is the main problem, and especially in front of the post office. That's an old concrete road that runs all the way down. That's going to be very expensive to take up. So that's just pretty much all I can say is all I know is roads. That's all I care about is roads. We don't do anything besides roads, so we want roads to be right.
That's right.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank
you,
you for,
everybody.
for bringing that to our attention. I appreciate you coming in.
So we need that investigated. That way, if we asked for a certain scope to be done and it was not done, then we've now got legal ramification to come back with our attorneys and make sure it either gets done the right way or they pull it all up, pay us back, and then we hire somebody else to do it the right way. At least the way it was told to be done. Because we obviously entered into a contract with them.
We can get with the city clerk, get a copy of the contracts, and work with Public Works on looking into it to see if there's any avenue.
Yeah, we need to we need to have that investigated like now.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Dev Chaudhary. I was here in the past commissioner meeting regarding the waste collection, waste pro situation. I emailed to all of the commissioner and the attorney, Scott, several times, I would say, on this. Lastly, I emailed February 22nd, March 6th, and April 1st. So after 3 emails, I received the response today from Mayor, Madam, and I'm just like to read what Madam Mayor is writing me. That city has only raised solid waste rate 3 times in last 16 years. My business commercial waste raised from 22 to 24, so within the last 2 years, it's raised twice. So first time I was paying $174 a month. Second year in 23, got raised 8% to $188. And now in December 23, the city raised my waste to $302, 60% raise. So I do not know what, Madam, you are trying to convey me that 3 times in 16 years, when my rate gone up 68% in 2 years. So basically, the statement you made, I'd like to understand, are you referring commercial side, residential side, or what are you referring to? Also, when you mentioned me that the nearby community, you done your research. Research nearby community in, I would say, Alachua, Gainesville, city don't provide direct service to the business owner. Business owner can do negotiation to directly to the waste collection company, and we can have our own service. We pay our own service. I have a business in Alachua, I have a business in Gainesville, I have a business in High Spring. So basically, when I compare my rate, and I explained you on my last meeting that for the same service, you are charging me $302, raised from $188. If I go directly with the same company, Waste Pro Management, they are charging me right now today $124. So my point is, whatever mistake past city manager did, or you guys, you are here to protect our citizen, you are here to look the right thing for the local business owner, but you have to make sure that whenever you sign any contract, whenever you can compare the rates and not just blindly sign the contract, and business owner have to suffer the situation. What I am suffering right now, my bill 2022-23, average running with the wastewater and everything was like $300, $350 a month. Right now my bill came today, $600 a month within the last 2 years. So my issue is, this is not acceptable. If you are basically writing me today that we signed the contract, so we are buying with the contract. I don't like that answer. My question is, why don't you guys allow us so we can negotiate directly with the service provider and we can do our business like what we are doing for other things? So I would like you to talk to attorney, reconsider whatever we are talking about. But Waste Pro, you are mentioning me that Waste Pro charges gone up and that's why he's charging you more. He's providing great service. I have a Waste Pro, same company service in Alachua. I know how much I'm paying. So for the same service, same company, if they are directly for one person, one business owner charging me $124, why I have to pay $302 with the city of High Spring? So this is my question, and I hope, and this is the pain every single small business owner is facing in this town. I can give you business name, they can sign it, and this is the must need to act question. Not just you are just basically responding my messages or email, but this is need to be act, and I need the favor from all of you to see what kind of help we can get as a business owner.
Well, I mean, I can only respond the same that I did in the email, and I looked back at dates from back to 2007. We raised rates in 2016, 2022, and again in 2023. That became effective in 2024. The rate comparisons that I was looking at was Newberry, because they also provide commercial services. We don't, by ordinance, have the ability to have businesses contract independently. We could consider modifying the ordinance, but we're still bound by the contract for the next 2 years with Waste Pro. If we didn't honor that contract, we would be in breach of contract, and that would be a problem.
So whenever the contract was signed, was there any open discussion like this? Was anyone approached to us as a business owner that this is what we're gonna sign? So basically, you sign and now we have to pay the penalty for next 2 years? This is what I'm getting into?
When we signed that contract, we were given the rates that we were going to be charged. We, as a commission, were told that Waste Pro was honoring the current prices and that there would be a small increase at the next fiscal year. In Waste Pro's defense, they negotiated an honest contract. This is not on them. This is on us. Would that I had known the right questions to ask at the time, I would have asked more questions. I know that the prices have gone up. They've gone up for everybody, and a 60% increase is huge. And, you know, in tandem with that is a 48% increase in fuel costs and all of the other operational costs that these guys have. I also did some research for people outside the municipal boundaries that contract directly for residential pickup. They are paying more for residential pickup than we are here, and they don't even get recycling. It's just trash once a week. So we negotiated the contract with them. I can only say we, the three of us here, this doesn't include Commissioner Miller or Bloodsworth. We were told that they were going to be honoring the same prices that we had been billed. That was only partially factual. So,
And that was also, I had heard that time that basically they were honoring the pricing with the last company. So basically, if that was the true, then my price don't go up 60%.
Right.
What I am facing.
we were focused on residential, to be quite honest with you, at the time. But then with commercial, the contract that was negotiated, we didn't find out until after the fact, until a fair bit after the fact, that we were paying the solid waste contractor a good bit more than we were billing our customers. That's just not a solvent position for us to maintain. We were absolutely hemorrhaging money. And we have to honor the contract that we entered into with Waste Pro. After this contract is over, I met with Waste Pro, I met with one of the attorneys. They are willing to enter into negotiations early if we want to. If it goes out to bid, it will end up being more expensive. And the unfortunate situation we find ourselves in is there's only 2 waste haulers that even serve this area. So we have 2 options. If there was more, available out there, it would drive down some of the prices, but
Madam Mayor, my question is, if as a single business owner, they are offering me today 124 rate, why?
our ordinance doesn't allow that. We would have to modify our ordinance. And if we stopped providing commercial pickup, that will end up raising all of the residential rates by a lot.
So you want us to, commercial owner wants to pay more to cover the residential part. That's what I think coming on. So, and when we talk about 2-year contract rate, I have to pay $13.50 almost a year, about $2,700 for 2 year extra money than what I supposed to get directly with the Waste Pro service. So this is the.
I mean, I can only ask the attorney, our current contract is in place, and our ordinance includes commercial trash hauling. Is that correct? We don't have the provision to allow businesses to contract directly.
As it stands now, that is the case, yes.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, legally, contractually, we have no other avenue right now. We just don't. And I know that that's not a good position for you.
That is not a good position to raise the 60% rate. That is not the good position to start with entering this type of the contract before notifying us that this is the rate we're gonna enter into.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, this is like this type of the mistake is not like tolerable and acceptable for a business owner.
Yeah, I understand.
And I hope you guys reconsider something when the contract run out.
Mhm.
Like don't just consider city of Newberry, but look, Alachua, Gainesville, other city. They don't have we can directly negotiate with them.
Yes, sir.
And if we,
I understand
as a
that.
single owner, if we can do it better, why you cannot do being 1,000 more customers? So thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Oh, can I say something really quick
Yes, sir.
before?
Yes, sir.
Because I know we switched city manager, so before Ashley left, I told her when the contract is ready to come back to make sure it's on the item that we vote whether or not we want to put it out to bid for a new garbage pickup.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that was relayed because that was in a city meeting that I requested that.
Okay.
So.
Janet Evans. I had three things that I wanted to touch on here right now. The first was, I just wanted to clarify and make sure that I understood the situation that happened here a couple of minutes ago when Mr. Blankenship was up speaking about the roads. And our attorney was unable to respond to the question you asked right away because he said he was just checking and reading on his phone the message that Commissioner Grunder had sent him regarding.
No, it wasn't a message that he had sent him. No, ma'am. That was something that he had previously discussed that.
Okay,
that-
so it wasn't a
that-
message on your phone?
No. It was something
Good,
that had been
thank you.
previously
I'm
brought
so
up
glad. I didn't want to come
that
out of
is
here.
related, directly related to the.
Misunderstanding
Yes.
something.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, good.
Yep.
The second point that I wanted to make was about this garbage pickup, the increase, that whole thing where Ashley said, well, you know, she delegated the job to somebody else to read the contract and you know, so we were $350, $350,000, sure, because of that little error. And I heard from some community comments that you were criticized, Madam Mayor, because you were one of the 5 commissioners who signed that, and that you should have caught that. And so
That's
on
fair
the other-
criticism. That's fair.
Okay, well, I also want to say that the very same people who are saying this are complaining that the questions that you come in with, the way that you have to have all this information down ahead of the scheduled meeting so that you have a chance to look at it and everything. You've been criticized for taking up too much time speaking in the meetings. And I just want to say, look, you can't have it both ways. If somebody wants to be thorough and get up there and ask these kind of questions and have adequate time to prepare, which was an issue in that particular case, you know, you can't have somebody then saying, you know, gee, you're talking too much. So that's what I kind of heard and kind of took out of that. And I just wanted to say, you know, that's putting you in an untenable situation. And I think that Mr. Marshall's kind of getting a feel for some of the stuff you're stepping into here. The third thing that I wanted to bring up was about the noise ordinance. Were you able to discuss that with Chief Shepard?
We haven't discussed it yet, but I think that's something that we need to discuss in the future because
Yes.
it's not only the issue that you've had, but others have had around the area.
And one of the reasons why I want to make sure that we look at a few different things is, one, this precedent that's being set. We have 4 venues in our city that are offering outdoor music here at the same time. So, you know, do we divvy up the days of the week? Do we say, hey, you know, I do not like the suggestion that the citizens get one of these decibel readings or something. I know that to measure the noise level in your yard, and then you call the police. And of course, I already have heard about the rabbit hole there. Well, did you get it serviced in the last 24 hours? How do we know that yours is accurate? All of that kind of stuff. I think it was Fort White has a common sense law on that. It's kind of like education, profanity, you know it when you see it. And with this common sense law, if you've got a couple of police officers come out and say, yeah, you know what, that is kind of loud. And so that they give say a $500 fine. And that's the kind of thing, you know, that money talks when you ask your business to then pay this fine, then they're going to maybe act on it and do something about it. But the longer this goes, the more concerned I get that it's going to be harder to pull that back. And like I say, I can go on and talk about karaoke outside where
No singing in this town.
well, we're not talking about quality music here. No, and the hooting and hollering is just, I wasn't there to see it. I'm 2 blocks away. And the hooting and hollering was such that you'd have thought somebody was dancing on the tables. And I kid you not. And it's the second week in a row now. And I'm just concerned we go another month and, you know, where are we going to be at that point?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I appreciate it. Anybody else?
Madam Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
Vice Mayor, esteemed commissioners, welcome. New city manager, Mr. Lawyer, Eva Werner. I can relate to the karaoke, and I appreciate Madam Mayor, investigating the issue. So I am assuming that the issue of ordinance, noise ordinance will be taken up at a different time. So I would like to know when this is going to be done, because I'm vastly invested in the issue. But that's not what I would like to talk about today. I would like to remind you, if you might have forgotten, that I am interested in 2 issues. One is pedestrian crossing across 441, and the other is reverting the one-lane traffic between the Pink Flamingo and Winn-Dixie into potentially 2 lanes. And I cannot say anything give you any report about the first issue, because the Department of Transportation was supposed to perform the survey, and I haven't heard from them yet. So as to the second issue, Chief Shepherd, through Ms. Angela, allowed me to see the traffic citations. And surprise, surprise, in February, there was significant amount of traffic citations. However, none of these, as compared to 2013, entire year, I don't know why, but which it seemed very interesting. However, I was unable to determine whether any of these citations come from the area of 242nd, the left turn. So I know that there is a officer who does these traffic stops and traffic citations. I would like to ask on the record for the answer from Chief Shepherd, since I cannot ask him right now, whether there is a way that the person who performed these traffic citations would like to perhaps remember and tell me whether any of these citations come from this area. I'm not expecting particular date, time, whatever, just in general, whether any of these citations may come from the left turn onto the 242nd road. So that's one thing. I would appreciate the answer. A second question that I have relates to this bike lane that was engineered on 441 in the area that I specified. And from Department of Transportation, I learned that City Council might have instructed them to do that. I would like to ask whether that is the true case, whether City Council decided about introducing the bike lane on this extremely busy and extremely dangerous section of 441. Nobody bikes there. on this, in this, as I have seen and I live there. So this, if that is the case, that city council does not really care to have this bicycle lane, perhaps, which I'm hoping, and if this council would support me and my community, which I represent, into reverting this 441 into the 2 lanes going north, I would appreciate perhaps some statement that you that it is important that the street was reverted to 2-lane traffic, that this information will be conveyed to the Department of Transportation. Is it possible? I would like to know either way whether you really think that it's very important that the bike lane is there. I think it's a issue of safety for anyone bicycling there. And if not, whether you would be willing to support that thing, that reversion with the Department of Transportation. So thank you, and I await your answers. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else? All right. We're moving on to new business. Let's go. Item number 1, discuss, consider, and act on placement of a monument at Walter Howard Park.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor Grunder, Commissioners Williams, Miller, and Bloodsworth. Welcome to the new city manager. My name is Valoria Kelly, and I'm here on behalf of the Alachua County Community Remembrance Project High Springs Subcommittee to address any concerns or answer any questions you may have regarding our request to place a historical marker in Walter Howard Park. However, before doing so, please allow me a few minutes to summarize who we are and the work we've already accomplished. Members of the High Springs Subcommittee were recruited from the community and others who expressed an interest to serve on the committee. Our first meeting was held in June 15th of 2020 via Zoom due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Over the course of 18 months, members of the committee attended various community events, including monthly meetings of the steering committee, to educate ourselves on Alachua County's history of racial terror lynchings and the effects still felt today. We participated in community conversations about race and related cultural and socio-economic disparities, including poverty. The High Springs Subcommittee then held several community forums within the city of High Springs. March 3rd of 22, we held an online event. August 18th of 2022, we held an in-person community forum. The forums were designed to educate the High Springs community on the work we were doing, as well as High Springs history in Alachua County regarding the legacy of racial terror. The High Springs Subcommittee, we partner with Alachua, Noonesville, and Monteoke, Gordon, La Crosse, EJI, and the Alachua County School District to sponsor an essay contest for students at Santa Fe High School. On May 12th of 22, we had an award ceremony where we awarded over $6,000 in monetary prizes to the students. We held a soil collection ceremony on April 22nd of 2023 at the Catherine L. Taylor Park to recognize the victims of racial violence in the High Springs area. Our latest project, which I think I presented to the commission in January of this year, we partnered with the other subcommittees to create a digital Black Heritage Trail map. The marker will further serve to educate the community on this difficult history and would serve as a long-term resource for the community. The subcommittee feels that the Walter Howard Park is an appropriate location given that the park is located on land that once belonged to two prominent African Americans, Mr. Mose Johnson, who was quite well known in the 13th Street community, and he also worked for the railroad, and Mr. Walter Howard, who the park is named after, he donated land to the city to be used as a neighborhood park. The park is also located in one of High Springs' oldest African American communities. And I'll end with this. With every appeal to show regard for the past comes the objections about its obvious flaws. We need not deify the actors. We don't need to sanitize the legacy or purge the sins from memory. We only need to take their history for what it is, flawed as they were, blind as they were, wrong as they were, for we are likely no better. Future generations will probably make similarly damning, if not worse, assessments of our lives when we are gone. I also wanted to share just a snippet from one of the essays that was written by a ninth grader. This ninth grader, she placed second in the contest. And I highlighted just a couple of things. She's talking about the county's history. And she said, to imagine these vile acts of hatred taking place in my county is sickening. But what took me by surprise even more is that nobody talked about it. Nobody ever mentioned this to me. There are memorials to bring awareness. She said, but what it comes down to is the county we live in. What's holding us back? Failure to fully recognize the mistakes of the past, choosing to be ignorant towards an issue that is very much still alive and dwelling. We refuse to accept this part of history in our county because it's embarrassing, but it's this generation's duty to break down the barriers of pride and arrogance and obtain a sense of awareness towards sensitive subjects such as this. And that was just from one of the students. The committee as a whole, any event, there has never been any blame cast for what somebody did in the past, because quite frankly, we wasn't there, we're not responsible. And so I always, whenever I speak, always make that point. It's not about blame, it's about education and acknowledgement. The marker, on one side of the marker, the language basically talks about the era of Reconstruction, what happened after the Civil War, specifically Florida's specific history. And then on the second side of the marker, it talks about the victims in a specific community. To date, markers have been placed in Alachua, the city of Newberry, and Gainesville. I think in October of this year, Monteoc, Gordon, La Crosse, they will do their historical marker ceremony. Hawthorne, Waldo, as well as the municipality of Micanopy, their proposals are pending, and High Springs, we are here asking for permission to place this marker. Again, I'm here to address any questions, concerns. If I don't have the answers tonight, I'm sure I can get them and bring them back. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Gentlemen, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I think my only question, like I asked earlier on the phone, is the marker going to be like this? Like the one in Gainesville with it's blue?
Yes.
Okay.
On one side of the marker, the wording is similar because it talks about just the history in general, but the second side of the marker will be more specific to High Springs.
Mr. Historian, you got in there? Yeah.
You know everybody. Do you have any comments or any input? Mhm. Well, that's true.
Two families in this neighborhood. The Webster family, that's still here in High Springs. Miss Wiggins' family, the young lady that was killed, the clerk here. Yeah, she was actually killed, not in this building, the old building. And that'll be part of that history of Mr. Walker and that incident that happened. Yeah. And most cities are doing it. It's just a historical marker.
And I will say, as far as the cost is concerned, there is no cost to the City of High Springs. The Equal Justice Initiative is responsible for the fabrication of the marker. Alachua County will be responsible for the installation. The High Springs Subcommittee would be responsible for planning a public event, inviting the commission, the community to the event.
Any other questions, gentlemen?
No, I'm ready to make a motion.
Any comments from the audience? Anybody? All right, sir.
I'll make a motion that we allow the placement of the monument at the Walter Howard Park.
You so mean this is mass out of town, but I second it.
It has been properly moved and seconded that we approve placement of a monument at Walter Howard Park. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you, Ms. Kelly.
Thank you.
I
Commissioner.
appreciate
for
your
your work on
presentation so much.
Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, discuss,
one more
oh, I'm
thing.
sorry, yes, sir.
One day you come by and I'll give you a history lesson.
Item number 2, discuss, consider, and act on a letter of support for ARC Hospice of Florida for expansion of hospice services. I met a few weeks ago with a gentleman who represents a hospice company, and the state of Florida has determined a finding of need that more hospice services are needed in rural areas, that we're kind of an underserved part of the county. And the state is going to be deciding this, and it would be helpful for them if we were to lend our support to their goal. And there's a letter in there that was drafted for you all to review, just stating that we support the expansion of more hospice services in this part of the world. Any questions or comments?
It's needed, it's needed.
Yes, sir.
It's needed.
Yes, sir.
Especially like in the rural areas,
Exactly.
it's just not enough.
And that's specifically the part they're looking at, that region where it's rural, where there's just not the kind of access that the other folks have. Yes, sir. Indeed, yes, sir. All right. I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to accept.
Second.
All right, it has been properly moved and seconded that we forward a letter of support for ARC Hospice of Florida for expansion of hospice services. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, 5-0. And that reminds me, Angela, I forgot to get you the email address for the gentleman that, I'm so sorry. All right, item number 3. Discuss, consider, and act on authorizing the following personnel to sign checks and investment documents in compliance with Section 2-97 of the High Springs Code of Ordinances. Mayor Catherine Whites, Vice Mayor Tristan Grunder, City Manager Jeremy Marshall, and City Clerk Angela Stone. Gentlemen, any questions or comments? I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we approve Section 2-97 High Springs Ordinance 2012-D. Is that correct, Angela?
Resolution 2012-G, yes, sir.
Yes.
All right.
Second.
All right, it has been properly moved and seconded that we approve the modifications to Section 2-97. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right. City Attorney report and update.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple of reports, both of them, as I'm thinking about it, are related to, or tangential to the Priest Theater. The first one directly involves the procurement of the Priest. As everyone recalls, the commission voted a few months ago to buy the Priest and allocated $350,000 that'll be funded from a state grant to make that purchase. I have been working directly with the attorney for the seller to put together a contract on that. We actually very diligently and quickly put together a contract a couple of months ago, and we were just about ready to submit it to the commission for approval when it became, it was made known to us that the state process for this grant requires us to submit the contract, a letter of, the unsigned contract, the letter of intent between the city and the seller regarding the procurement of the parcel, all of the closing documents, including the proposed settlement statement and deed, to the state for approval, for them to then release the funds to the city so the city has them in hand when we do the closing. And so we had the contract all ready to go and then had to take 2 steps back. And we have worked on the letter of intent, and we were actually corresponding about it today. And we think we've just about got it ironed out, because doing the letter of intent and sending it to the state means that we don't know exactly when the closing date is going to be. The original contract, we had a closing date in it, and we were going to work toward it. Well, now that we've got this unknown period of time that the state's going to have this document in Tallahassee to kind of contemplate and marinate and approve, and we don't know when we're getting it back, we've had to renegotiate the terms of the contract to make the closing date and all of those dates relative to whatever the unknown date is we get the approval back from Tallahassee and receive the funds. So we've about worked through all of that and anticipate being able to send that letter of intent to the state, and while that is marinating up there, bring back to you the actual contract for ratification. I'm quite comfortable putting the cart before the horse, because you've already ratified and approved the expenditure and stated what your contingencies were. While that's at the state level, we'll bring the contract back so that when we hear back from the state, you can immediately sign it. We can start the closing process. So that is that issue. The other matter, again, related to the Priest, is the 2 vacant lots that are to the north of the Priest. There's been a lack of clarity over who exactly owns those. We've done the title work. We've worked with the county attorney's office, because they are legal counsel for the Alachua County Library District, who was the other possible owner. Turns out that the city is the title owner, and once we established that, the Library District Council wanted to be sure that there was not a mistake made when the city signed its deed back in the 80s for the library property, and did not make a mistake and inadvertently not convey those. So Ms. Stone pulled all of those minutes for us, and we looked back at all of those meetings. And as luck would have it, there was not a mistake made by the city or by the library district. There was just an administrative error somewhere in the paperwork over at the property appraiser's office, which is the place that reflects it's owned by the library district. So we have put together a joint resolution between the city and the Alachua County Library District Governing Board. I'm happy with it. The legal counsel, I believe, for the county is happy with it, but he is checking with his director at the library. Now that we have things settled with our management here at the city, I will be sharing it with Mr. Marshall, making sure he's happy with it. If everybody's happy, we'll be bringing it to the respective boards to sign it, and the effect of that document is to direct the property appraiser to change the designated owner and the property appraiser's records to match. And then once all of that is done on the city side, I get to have a conversation with Commissioner Grunder's dad to relive some history about that property, because at some point along the way, the city granted an easement over a portion of that property to an adjacent property owner, and I'm hoping his dad recollects some of the history about that because we can't make heads or tails of it in our office.
I told y'all it wasn't no good. You don't want to listen to me.
So
I'm sure he'll remember.
I'm sure he will if he's true to form. He's never failed me yet on any of these things. So anyway, so that is the update on those two lots as well.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Mr. Marshall, do you have any update? Welcome.
It's been,
That's a good first. You know, we had a meeting once that was 5 minutes.
We
That
did.
ain't this one.
When we hired him.
yes, you hired me. It's been a week, let me tell you. Staff's been great. Really digging into budget. You guys were upfront and honest with that throughout the whole process, and I'm realizing how honest you were about the budget. We're digging into personnel. We're digging into vehicle expenditures, and I'm working with the police chief on the noise ordinance. We've been working on that. Lot of moving parts, and just happy to be here. And as always, I'm available to the commission anytime.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Bloodsworth, sir, you have any comments?
Yes, ma'am. I just want to thank all the ladies in the clerk's office. Since I'm a rookie, y'all have been just Johnny on the spot, helping me out best you can. I appreciate it. Thank you. It's good to see y'all smiling face when I go in there.
Sir.
My employee highlight of the week is Miss Phyllis Bring. I think that's how you say her last name. From the building department. I met her. She came by the barbershop, and we got a chance to talk, and she's doing some great things in the building department, so she is my employee highlight of the week.
And she gives the best hugs, I'm just saying. Really good hugs.
I just want to say welcome, Mr. Marshall. Thank you. We get a chance, we can give you a bit of history of High Springs.
There you go.
Do maybe lunch and share something with you, a few things. And Mr. Marshall, I'm so glad it didn't go back to when the sawmill used to be there, where that lot is right there. You speaking about?
The furthest we went back is when the phone company had it. And
Yeah, well, that's been lately, but back. It was a sawmill there.
Oh, okay.
Many years ago.
Well,
Even that
and-
building wasn't there. That should be there when we used to go to the preach theater there.
I've had a lot of fun working with that one. I actually ran into a contemporary, Wes Carter from Loncala.
Yeah.
And I were
Oh,
talking the
wow.
other day, and Wes actually remembers going from the funeral home over to the library when he was a kid, when the library was still there in the old phone building.
Yes,
So-
sir.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm ready to go home.
Yes, sir, I hear you. I hear
It's a
you.
long day.
So you finished?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I only have a couple quick things. Our Youth Advisory Council did a great job with their Springs cleanup, their first initiative last weekend. And they will be helping with Pioneer Days, helping Mrs. Decker with trash and cleaning toilets. So come on out the 27th or the 28th. And I was approached by the Relay for Life to see if I would voluntarily surrender for being imprisoned on the 26th. And I am happy to give my services. I will be in jail with Jordan Marlowe from Newberry and Gibb in Alachua. The three of us will be there together. So if anybody would like to participate in that and help bail me out, we will be there. Now, there are some people that would probably prefer I stay there, so feel free to donate to Jordan or Gibb. And I just want to give a shout out to Miss Angie at the police department. Chief Shepard isn't here, but I had somebody call me and tell me about what an amazing employee she is. I don't know if her hugs are as good as Miss Phyllis's, but she's that, nobody sees her out and about on the motorcycles and in the cars and doing all of the work. But boy, she is sure the one doing the work behind the scenes. So, Mr. Marshall, welcome. So glad to have you here. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn, gentlemen.